It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Andy Iannacco, Alex Lindsay, Jason Snell are here. John Gruber is sad. He's mad, and he's no longer a believer. We'll find out. We'll find out why. We'll also talk about the new iPhone Air and debunk one common myth or rumor about it. And then it's time to do some headbanging. Metallica on Vision Pro. All that coming up next on MacBreak Weekly.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 964, recorded Tuesday, March 18th, 2025. I'm just disappointed. It's time for MacBreak Weekly, the show where we cover the latest Apple news. And Apple is feeling really bad today because they were spanked. They've been spanked. Andy Iannacco is here. Hello, Andrew.
Hey there, hi there, ho there. Yeah, there's very few times that I say, gee, I'm glad that I'm not in a high position of authority at Apple with the commensurate pay and respect. This is one of those weeks where I'm very happy to just be a commentator.
Just a lowly
just
commentator.
To be able to judge. That's
Jason
what I'd love
Snell
to
is also here from sixcolors.com. Hello, Jason.
Hey, Leo. You know, I'm not mad. I'm not
mad either.
I'm just
not mad either.
disappointed.
Yes, that's right. I'm just disappointed. The worst thing a father could say. I'm just disappointed in you. I expected better. And Alex Lindsay from officehours.global. Hello, Alex.
Hello. Good to be here.
Hello. So, you know who's disappointed? John Gruber. It's hysterical to watch because, I mean, maybe it's because he expected so much more of Apple than I did.
Well, also, can I also throw in that he also added in like the thing that makes it hurt twice as much. Like when your dad says, I just blame myself because I guess I just screwed up and expecting so much. He actually said in like paragraph in second,
I trusted you too much.
I can't believe that I didn't see this. This is the biggest mistake I've ever made in my life. Like not pointing out that they'd never actually shown this thing working. And that's like, oh, this is why we love you, John.
So we should probably, for those who are not like us, obsessively following the Apple ups and downs. It's all about Apple Intelligence, which, if you've been listening to this show, I think you probably knew long ago was, struggling, not great, having a hard time. Eventually, Apple gave a statement to John Gruber's Daring Fireball, saying, "Yeah, we're probably not going to have Apple Intelligence until next year, which is 2026 in Apple, or later this year, or whatever they said. Anyway, 2026." So then John apparently went back, wrote the story, and then thought about it, stewed, if you will. He put out a piece.
Yeah. He stewed on my podcast. I caught him he was on Upgrade last week, and I caught him mid-moment where he was working through his feelings, and he used the word bamboozled at one point, and I was like, oh, wow. He's feeling it hard here. A lot of feelings going on. Yeah.
Wow. He kind of implied that Apple, something's rotten in the state of Cupertino, he said, which is not a felicitous headline. I'm just going to say, for a number of reasons. Mainly because Cupertino is a city, not a state. But anyway, okay. He said, I should have had my head examined. How I missed this. Ultimately, he says, Apple lied to us. And Apple... Oh my God, when I'm reading this, I'm going, what the hell? See, this is what comes of thinking of Apple as something other than a company.
Yep, a corporation.
A corporation.
Corporation, yeah.
This is what comes of thinking Apple is your lover. It isn't your lover. It is a company. It is dedicated to profit. Let me find the paragraph. He goes on and on and on.
You get some feelings,
my deeply misguided mental framework for Apple Intelligence. It gets worse. Apple had its... anyway, he basically says Apple has fallen off its pedestal. Apple used to be the greatest, most wonderful company in the world. But now Now they're just so damaged. But I'm sorry, I'm scrolling through this whole thing. I should have probably.
He got a lot of feelings out. It's a good read. Yep.
So, the ride is over. He ends.
Yeah.
When mediocrity, excuses, and BS take root, they take over. A culture of excellence, accountability, and integrity cannot abide the acceptance of any of these things and will quickly collapse upon itself. With the acceptance of all three, a plague on your house, Apple. Oh, no, he didn't say that part.
Yeah.
But he was really hurt that Apple would have lied. And, is it fair to say they lied about Apple Intelligence? I think really what he kind of implied, and I think most people have said is, we even said this last week, marketing got a little ahead of what the engineering team could do.
I think that this is definitely a fight. This is where we finally get open warfare, so to speak, between engineering and marketing at Apple. This was, I think most of us noticed that when Apple announced all of these Apple Intelligence features, we didn't see even a scripted recorded demo. We saw a mock-up video of what this would look like if it were actually working. I don't think that they necessarily lied. They did marketing, and I know that's often a great. There's a big gulf. There's a hard to tell the difference between those two. But some people, I don't think John was included, but I think some people were free to think that, oh, wow, this is a demo of course, it's a lab demo. It's not ready to ship yet, but this is what it's going to do. Other people were able to see that this is just, again, an illustration of here's an IOU for what we hope to do. Compare and contrast with what Google has always done with Gemini, which is they will give you a really lame, highly controlled demo, but it will be like a live demo. So you can't say that, wow, this doesn't look like very much right now, but at least they've showed something that was actually working. What I think my interpretation of what of reading Guru's post was that he really felt upset about this because he felt as though marketing overstepped itself and suggested that Apple Intelligence was further along than it actually was, where they didn't have anything working whatsoever, that under those circumstances, it was extremely sketchy for them to show a mock-up of this thing actually working.
He writes, it's easy to imagine someone in the executive ranks arguing, we need to show something that only Apple could do. But it turns out they announced something Apple couldn't do. And now they look so out of their depth, so in over their heads, that not only are they years behind the state of the art in AI, but they don't even know what they can ship or when. Their headline features from 9 months ago not only haven't shipped, but still haven't even been demonstrated, which I, for one, now presume means they can't be demonstrated. This is italicized, because they don't work.
Yeah. I mean, it is, I don't know. I think part of this is that he obviously brought a little more credulity to the demos last year than most of us did. I mean, I think it's very clear that Apple felt incredible pressure to show that they were in the AI game. We've talked about it before, during, and after. Mm-hmm. And I think it was very clear that they were pushing it hard and potentially lowering their standards, right? There were some things that were very clearly going to be very hard for them to pull off, clearly not going to happen until 2025, right? Even at the time, they made no claims that those things were going to happen soon. And so, I mean, John's not wrong in saying that they felt pressure, they lowered their standards, and I don't know if I would say that they lied. Andy is right, it is marketing, and I think also there's probably a cultural disconnect, a cultural problem where somewhere someone said, well, we could probably do this. Yeah. And in normal circumstances, the executives in question would be like, that's probably is not good enough. Let's just boot it to next year. And they were not going to boot AI features to next year. They really wanted them out.
They really couldn't.
And so they lowered their standards. Now, I think that's one issue, which is someone somewhere misjudged whether they could ship this stuff in the Apple OS year that we're in right now, the iOS 18 year. So that was a mistake. The secondary mistake, and I think that this is actually a better reason for John to get mad and for all of us to be grumpy, is the marketing plan. And I go back to my thing that I've been saying for a while now about how Apple seems to only have one playbook. So they sort of have the way that when you're winning, why change anything? And clearly the marketing department was handed these features as if they were done and said, great, we'll make a commercial with Bella Ramsey where we talk about all these things that aren't going to ship maybe ever. And we'll just advertise it as if it's real happening today. And I think that was a huge disconnect and a major problem, because the whole Apple Intelligence campaign started before Apple Intelligence shipped any feature.
I would like to point out that I've been saying this. I remember watching the NFL and watching these ads saying Apple's pushing these features that don't exist. Have.
Yeah.
I mean, this was, I think, obvious. Now, I guess because it's John Gruber, the entire chattering class is going crazy over this. Ben Thompson, skeeted right on, and Owen Malik says he writes, you have to read the whole thing. Gruber is a longtime follower of Apple, close to its high priests and kings. He has a historical understanding of Apple like no other. When he criticizes Apple, the situation is much worse.
I mean, is it wrong to say for our younger viewers, maybe they won't remember this, but it's the if we've lost Cronkite, we've lost the American people.
It's like that, isn't it?
Kind of moment in Vietnam, where it's like when Walter Cronkite came back from Vietnam and he's like, people, this is really bad. And that's when the people in the government were like, uh-oh, like if Uncle Walter and middle America is now questioning the war in Vietnam, things are bad. Well, it's like if John Gruber is thoroughly disgusted with something that Apple's been doing, that's a bad sign.
Well,
right?
I think I think that Apple is, and we've talked about this on the show quite a few times. I think they have a no problem, which is they're not using it often enough. And I think that's been, we see this.
That's something Steve Jobs was brought to the table, right?
Right. He just we get, you see this kind of creep of the number of products that are out at one time, this confusing process with the chipsets, the constant changing of the OS in a way that not necessarily is always forward, and oftentimes if it is forward, it's too far forward, too fast. A lot of things just not being stable, and you just feel like they're so aggressively trying to keep up with someone that is imaginary for them. I don't know who they're trying to keep up with. It's not like Apple users are going to jump ship next week, and so I think that. And again, I think that their belief that they needed Apple Intelligence there was much stronger than the actual need. And whether they needed it or not, it's a lot worse to have this happen. I think that I applaud John for, slapping him on the wrist. I think a lot of us have been talking about Apple moving too fast down the path of, their ideas rather than really making sure that it makes impact. The question really is what's going to happen next.
I think John's hurt, though, also comes from believing that Apple was something different and special, which I've not believed. I've never believed, and I'm less surprised. I mean, Google did the same thing with Google Plus. I mean, this is not unusual.
I would say that Apple does tend to move a lot slower and with a lot more intentionality than most of the other companies out there. I mean, a lot of the other companies.
But they're a company. I can think of plenty of failures on Apple's part. What I can't think of, and I think Gruber's right, is I can't think of a time that Apple marketing has said they had a feature that they didn't have. But that very few companies will do that. That's a fumble. Yeah. I'm just not hurt by it. I'm not. That's just they screwed up. Marketing screwed up.
That he's invested some of his own personal, worth in his calibration of being able to read and what Apple says and trust what they say and what's the level where you can trust them. And he's not wrong in saying, they lowered the bar. They did not used to overpromise at this level, to promise vaporware at this level. And I think that's the thing that bugs him the most, is that Apple has always prided itself on being a company that when you see something, when they announce something, it's either going to ship or it's very close. They have a high degree of confidence. They don't do the fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Here's some vaporware. We'll get to it eventually. It's a CES product that may or may not exist. Stuff like that. They've never played that game. And he's not wrong in saying that this Apple Intelligence announcement is a new low in terms of Apple not announcing things that don't exist. Like that bottom line is that here we are in March, 9 months after WWDC, and that product, those things aren't in beta. Nobody's seen them, and they may never ship.
And it feels like, again, for me, I use AI all day, every day. It's really important to me, and I just don't care when Apple gets around to it because I'm plenty full. So I have this whole thing, like, I don't understand why it had to happen, and it feels like just a very unforced error. In the same way that the mag charging that they announced that never came to, like, who cares? Like, who cares about that product? And so they got excited. In both cases, they got excited and had to tell us something that didn't exist when no one was really waiting for it. Like, I just don't think, I get the analysts are really waiting for it, but I don't think that the average Apple user was like, oh my gosh, when is Apple Intelligence coming?
Maybe that's why
I'm talking about the average Apple user doesn't even
when
know
it comes to AI, they're not alone in this. Google released a video of Gemini that I fell for. I thought, wow, this is amazing. And it turned out it was fabricated. Companies have done this for years. I guess if you thought Apple was somehow special, but I've always thought Apple's a company like any other company, and they're going to make mistakes like this. I don't think it's the end of the world. I think you're right, Alex, when you say that's not why people buy iPhones. I don't think the market is the Apple customers are going to say, "Oh, I'm not buying any more Apple products. They lied." Nobody cares.
What I hope this leads to is Apple lets us just say, "Hey, for Siri, I would like you to activate ChatGPT all the time. I'm going to give you the approval for it to be just used, and let me just use that," because that's what I do right now. Is I have to fumble around to get ChatGPT to open up, and then I just start hitting the button. I sit there and talk to it about what I'm trying to figure out while I'm working. And it is seamless, but I have to just get to that first bit, and I can't just say, "Hey, Shlomo, ask a question." And I just want to be able to, as a user, I'm hoping this failure and the delay means that Apple will stop trying to protect us from ourselves and just let us have the AI that we're already using all the time.
Here, we will never know for sure, but my theory is that this decision was made not because, and this is one of the reasons it's sort of a sin, it was made not because of consumer demand. I think that the consumer demand for AI is overstated, and also, as Alex points out, a lot of that demand is fulfilled by just using the apps and doing it that way. I think this was about Apple executives feeling like in the pressure cooker of the echo chamber, really, of Silicon Valley, that everybody's talking about AI, and maybe investors are worried about it, and they're worried about their stock price, and they're worried about recruiting people or retaining people because of the perception. Hiring is another reason you do stuff like this. But I don't think the Apple's thing that they usually focus on, which is consumer demand and fulfilling the needs of consumers, was a motivator here. And that is part of the problem, is that they tried to do a spin on it. A lot of these features, when you look at them and when we've talked about them, it doesn't read as Apple sensed a problem and then is using AI to solve it. All of them are Apple had an agenda to push AI into their operating system and found places to stick it, which is not the same thing as solving a problem organically because the problem existed. It's because they wanted to shove AI features in so they could make those claims. And I think the best news of this whole story is, like I said earlier, when you're going great, there's no reason to change anything. And I have to hope that after lots of behind the scenes grousing about Siri for 10 years and about AI for the last couple of years, that this maybe finally serves as a kind of a punch in the gut to Apple to make them say, "Oh, the way we're structured internally," because I don't think this is a lazy programmer somewhere. I don't think this is one bad apple in the management camp. I think this is a cultural, structural problem inside Apple that caused this to go on like this. And maybe it is the punch that they need to say, "Oh, we need to actually rethink things and change things and make things different." And what Alex says is absolutely right. Being able to rely on third-party AI solutions and put it in the APIs for iOS 19, providing APIs for developers to use Apple's models so that they don't have to bake in their own less efficient models when you download an app and try to run it on your iPhone. Like, there are lots of things they could do that are more Apple-like that they didn't do because they had this bad decision, and I think a broken structure internally that led to this kind of dysfunction. And it's easy to just ignore it when you're number one. and they've been number one for a long time. Maybe now they've finally gotten the message.
I disagree slightly. I agree that it wasn't important to for the purposes of improving the product. It was not important for them to ship Apple Intelligence start rolling it out in late 2024 and make serious upgrades in in 2025. Absolutely agree with that. However, we talked about this a little bit last week about how at that moment in June, Apple had just come off of one hugely embarrassing development hitch and one slightly embarrassing one where they'd spent $1 billion a year for 10 years on a car that they decided never to ship. And they had spent the product.
To their credit, they had never said anything about that car, right?
Right. No, I'm saying, but it was well known that it was.
Yeah, but they never made the announcement. They didn't start running ads about you're going to love the Apple car.
I'm going somewhere with this. They shipped the Apple Vision Pro, which Tim had spent the past year or so hyping up in the limited way that Tim can hype up an unannounced product by saying, "Oh, we think VR is a very big thing, and yes, we're very, very looking forward to we're doing stuff like that." Okay, I think that it was very, very important for them to make a clear statement that we haven't let AI pass us by. We've been working on AI since 2016, 2017 or earlier. Here is our roadmap for AI, because you can't just simply, as Apple has proven, you can't just announce a roadmap and then start shipping something a year later. That's a 10-year process to get where everybody else is right now. Okay, so it was very important to analysts, to their own culture, to indicate that we're not just thinking that this is something simple that we can knock off. We're not thinking that this is something that we can absolutely ignore. This is potentially something like support for the internet, support for the World Wide Web, support for Wi-Fi. And we promise you that if you buy a computer, a Mac today or an iPhone today that's supposed to last 5 or 6 or 7 years, it's not going to be functionally obsolete in 5 or 6 years, because in that time we will have developed our own in-house stuff. So I can see the pressure, that there was some pressure that was necessary. However, where they've really screwed up is they could have just simply said, "This is a long road. We have noticed the missteps of our competitors, the serious missteps of our competitors in spreading disinformation, in creating deep fakes, and we don't care to repeat those mistakes, so that we will be proceeding carefully and slowly, and we have no timetable to announce as yet. However, here is our vision for the future." That would have been absolutely sufficient. But I don't think that Apple had the option of pretending that, "Oh, well, yeah, I mean, we allowed the OpenAI app and the ChatGPT app into the App Store, so we got it." No, they have to be able to show they got some skin in the game.
But there was a spectrum there, right? Like they didn't need the features that didn't ship. They didn't need to announce. I don't think, right? Like Genmoji seems like a pretty no-brainer. I don't love image playgrounds, but Genmoji seems.
I have actually deleted image playgrounds.
Image playgrounds is not good. It's so far behind the state of the art. It's bad. And the writing tool stuff is fine. Again, there's stuff in there that's fine. Andy's right though. They did feel like they're behind the 8 ball, right? They're like, how do we make a move here? And you know what? They were under pressure. And it turns out, here's the funny thing. It turns out, they were way behind. They were caught flat-footed, and they made some rash decisions that are coming back to hurt them now. But the real question is not, details about why they made this decision. The real question is, what do they have? Are those features dead? Are they coming back? What are they and what are they going to announce in June? And are they going to learn from the last year? Because remember, those were on Apple terms, rash decisions, right? Like Apple doesn't do things in 6 months, a turn like that. That doesn't happen. And they did it this time. And we see the result. So like, what have they learned in the last year? And are they going to change direction? Are they going to stay the course? Are they going to throw features out and put different features in? Are they going to pretend it never happened? That's a real good question. June is going to be very interesting. And I'll point out that not just John Gruber, but all of us are going to add, no matter what our level of skepticism is about anything Apple says in its marketing, all of us took a step like +5 to skepticism. Wherever you started, we're all more skeptical now than we were a year ago.
I'm not,
the real
because
challenge.
I don't.
You were maxed out on skepticism.
John Gruber of Amazon, which doesn't exist, of course, wrote an article saying, "Geez, Amazon promised smart Alexa Plus a year ago, and they still don't have it. Oh my God, they lied." because nobody expects anything from Amazon or Google.
Well,
but the real question
wouldn't you say
is,
that means that people who used to expect something from Apple are now much less inclined to expect something from Apple, that they're now more like the rest of them?
Yeah.
I mean, the thing is that, all of life is a confidence game. And when people start losing confidence, things start to fall apart really quickly. There's a lot of things that are held together just because we all stop at stop signs and stoplights because we have the confidence that everyone else is going to do it and everyone has the confidence that we're going to do it. But it's all a game.
Actually, if you think everybody's going to stop, you blow it. You run right through it.
Right,
to be honest.
Well, the point is we
stop because we think they're not stopping.
There's so many things that we do that are all live inside of confidence, trust, a confidence, and the reality distortion only works when that reality distortion is followed up with something that is a result, looks like a result. And if that fades away, then absolutely. And it is, I do think it's fading away. The
only thing that matters, should matter to anybody, the only thing that matters to me is Gruber right that there's a structural problem at Apple? I'm sorry he got butthurt. I'm sorry people's faith in Apple was destroyed.
This is a structural problem, and we've seen it because Siri's been so bad for so long. And they hired John Giandrea from Google, 5 years ago, longer, and he was going to fix Siri and fix all their machine learning stuff and all of that. And yet they have been, part of it is a tactical problem, which is somebody at Apple certainly raised their hand and said, hey, LLMs are a thing. And senior people at Apple were like, nah, forget it. It's dumb. It's never going to amount to anything. And that was a mistake. But I do think that if you look at this, there seems to be a real, I got it, you take it kind of thing going on between Craig Federighi, who's in charge of software, and John Giandrea, who's in charge of AI. And whatever, in the end, we can speculate about what's broken in there, but what ships is what matters, and Siri's a mess. And Mark Gurman says they're not going to get new conversational Siri until 2027. It's not good.
Even if Apple hadn't, what if Apple had never even mentioned AI and just shipped the few things they shipped? Wouldn't they be in the same boat? People would say, "Oh, Apple's missing the bus."
Yes.
So it doesn't.
I think it would be worse. I think that there is a more broad public perception now that Apple is on it, even if they're struggling, even if it's messy. And honestly, those ads, as misleading as we say they are, I think if you asked a member of the general public if Apple's stuff does AI, they'd say yes.
Yeah. They were.
And I think one thing that they're missing is I don't think that the leadership right now is the same level of strength that, of course, it had under some, a lot of the corporations that you see moving really quickly often move because they have a strong man as the CEO, like someone who, whether it was Legere at T-Mobile or Jensen at NVIDIA or, those types of things where you have somebody who is pointing the ship very vigorously, and that person can destroy the ship as well. like there's that, we're seeing that in other companies right now. But the point is that growth of making decisions and whether that person has good taste or not. And in Apple's case, Steve had good taste, but I don't feel like after he left, there hasn't been somebody else with this kind of singular vision of this is what we need to do or this is what we're all about. There's a lot of people that are having a lot of meetings that have a lot of things going on, and which is a typical corporation problem. But it doesn't have that singular vision, which has allowed Apple to expand into a lot of other places. But I do think it has taken their eye off of the original ball, whether that's plus or minus. And I think that's why we see more features than stability. I think that's why we see more announcements than products. Those all are things that are absolutely very common with large corporations that are making decisions by committee.
Yeah, and also the thing we have to remember about Apple is that my theory of all businesses, particularly tech businesses, is that there is one machine in the basement that is responsible for generating all of the money, or at least so much of the money that it is really the entire business, and everything has to enhance the operation and the function of this machine. For Apple, it is hardware. Every question has to be at some point filtered through the question, how will this help us sell more iPhones? How will this help us sell more Macs, more iPads, more AirPods? And yes, they have services, but I think that that's still one of the biggies. So when you ask them a question like AI is not, whereas Google is in a position where their machine is services. What can we turn into services? Particularly, what can we turn into cloud services? What can we turn to cloud computing services? AI is an absolute natural fit, and also a feature that will help that'll help Android users continue to use the phone and continue to feed information into the ecosystem. Apple doesn't have that. So when you ask them internally, when they debate what should we do with AI, there's no obvious answer to the question, how will this help us sell phones, or how will this help us sell services in the short term? And that's, I think, where they can often do things that are hard to predict from the outside.
I think one of the things that's really hard here is that Siri is the obvious one, that if you could fix it, it would be a huge deal. Like I get on a drive, I open up ChatGPT and I sit there and talk to ChatGPT all the way through the drive, asking it questions about something I'm trying to figure out. That's what I want to do with Siri, and the only thing that bugs me about it is that I have to go find the app. I can't just say, hey, Shlomo, what is this? And get a reason. Like my wife asked Siri something the other day, and I was like, what are you doing? And I just opened up, because Siri came up with some kind of crazy answer. And I was like, why are we asking Siri that? That's not what she does. She does timers, and she does the weather and the sunrise. So that's what she knows how to do.
Conversation with Lisa. She'll ask Siri things, and I said, I just know this, like, you're not going to get an answer.
But it was like, what's interesting though is that we asked, of course, ChatGPT, and it gave this very complete answer, and then it gave us some extra stuff that you might want to know, and then we said, well, what about this? And then it gave us a whole bunch of other stuff, and it was magical. Like, it was a magical,
So this is something Malik actually does say. He has an update to his piece, and he says, my premise that Apple did this for the market was disputed by a number of Wall Street insiders who said, no, if Apple cared about the market, they'd focus on their profit maker, and they wouldn't be worried about this kind of stuff. So this wasn't really, I mean, he disputes, and I maybe don't know if I agree with that this was done because Apple had to for the market. Maybe there was hubris.
I think it's absolutely the market, because I think that it is, because the market is not. The issue is
Apple's got things they can talk about, though, like Apple Silicon,
but when
they have so many, and the cameras and the iPhone. There's so many good things they can talk about that are reasons people actually buy.
But you have a bunch of analysts that are asking you every meeting, what are you doing about AI? What are you doing about AI? What are you doing about AI?
Yeah.
And then you have this little echo chamber of people who say, well, Apple doesn't have a solution for this. And then you have the idiots who are the stockbrokers who don't know really anything about anything. They just kind of listen to the analysts, and they sit there and buy and sell and everything else. But the problem is that you talk to any employee who works at a company with lots of stock options, when the stocks start sliding, there's a huge morale problem because that's the cost of. It's not the stock. The most important stockholders in a company are the employees, and they have all of this. They've taken lower salaries for higher stock options, which works great as long as it keeps going. But it's a bit of a pond. Well, I mean, it hurts anybody.
Everybody's stock is going down right now. So
yeah, I mean, but Apple's would have been going down early.
Apple might have been more worried that people would start buying Android phones because, I mean, all of the things that they promote in these ads and a Google Pixel 9 can do, right?
Yeah, this is I think ultimately explained entirely by being a defense against the potential future where AI features are enough to make you not buy an Apple product, right? And I don't even think that, and this may be part of the problem, I don't even think that this is an effort to make sure that Apple is a leader in AI-enabled features. I think it's literally a defensive move to say it kills us. I mean, people switching to AI PCs over Macs, I guess, is a little bit of a problem, although the Mac is so open in terms of software that it probably doesn't matter. But on the iPhone, like Apple's got, this is the downside of it being so locked down, is there are apps on the iPhone, but if you want it interwoven with your operating system, like that is the existential risk. Maybe not this year, but like if they don't start down the path, is there a point where random consumer says, well, I need to get a Samsung or a Google phone because Apple doesn't do whatever that thing is that is what I need to do with my phone, and that could kill half of their revenue so it's existential. So that's what they're playing defense against.
They are protecting their their chief product.
Yeah.
John Gerard in our Club Twit Discord says, because of the Apple ads, my sister and sister-in-law were asking about it and wanting to upgrade their old iPhone to take advantage of the AI. Before that, all I'd heard was AI is stealing my data and I'll never use it. So maybe Apple's not completely misguided here. Maybe
they just got to deliver. That's ultimately, John could get mad about the marketing and all those things, but I think what he's really mad about, and I think that we all need to look at, is Apple has failed to deliver. That's what's going on here, is they failed to deliver AI things when other people were, and they're behind. Their image model isn't very good. They promised some features that were going to differentiate them, and they can't ship them. And that's the most troubling thing. The good news is, and I'm going to be Mr. Optimistic here for a moment. The good news is, I think the events of the last 6 months suggest that AI models are more of a commodity, and that, it's highly unlikely that somebody like Google invents an AI thing that blows everybody away that is not replicable by literally every other company if they've got enough time and money. And if that's the case, that's an advantage for Apple, because it doesn't really matter that they're behind, because it's not something that's going to be the crown jewels. That AI is going to be much more of a commodity that's easy to generate.
Well, and I think that it feels like they blinked. You feel like, in a lot of ways, you feel like Apple is this giant ship that doesn't really pay attention to anybody else and just kind of plow, whether they do or not. It just feels like they're just making great products, and they're just happy that people are showing up, that kind of thing. And in this case, it just feels desperate to say a bunch of things that aren't there, like you just had to do it. And you're just not. I think that John and most of us are not used to seeing Apple look desperate.
Yeah, it's a little bit like the first time that you see your parents not drunk but a little bit buzzed, and they're a little bit silly. And it's
when I was 3.
It's like you're used to thinking, wait a minute, they never laugh and just dance in the middle of the kitchen and have have an egg fight in the middle of the room. What is going on here? So the first time that Apple announces something and clearly can't deliver it, not only that, but you start to think about what in Apple's corporate culture, what in their management system allowed them to screw up this badly, to be able to say, okay, if there are conversations internally saying, what can we promise? And not even a fixed deadline, but vaguely, when can we promise it? And so, okay, we feel as though we can have this feature ready by, a lot of this stuff could be ready in 2025, let's say. What failure happened so that, no, they're not even close to it? There's I think it was Gurman's column this week, was it, where somebody mentioned that there was sort of a let's all feel better about the horrible week we had all hands meeting at Siri, in which one of the heads of the project basically was showing off, here's some stuff that's actually working, so that at least the team can see we haven't just been sort of raiding the vending machine here. We actually have some work done, and there is something we can build upon. That's pretty shocking that that's where they are right now. And so I think that's why this is causing a lot of people to rethink a lot of these things, a lot of their impressions of Apple that were not Apple's responsibility. As I often say, people think of Apple as, hey, they're two hippies in a garage, and hey, wow, they care about humanity. And no, they are a $3.5 trillion company. They are as dysfunctional as any other huge tech company. They are as selfish as any other huge tech company. But
do you think they've learned a lesson not to pre-announce stuff? I mean, that was always their tradition, is don't pre-announce. Maybe they felt like they had to. They have had to. Besides putting out the press release and the statement to John Gruber, they also have had to modify the Apple page about Siri. They've added some fine print to the big paragraph that says, with all new superpowers, Siri can assist you like never before. This is still on the Apple page. Awareness of your personal context enables Siri to help you in ways that are unique to you. Need to check when your mom's flight is arriving? Yeah. Siri, this is exactly, by the way, what was in that Bella Ramsey ad. Siri can help you find what you're looking for without compromising your privacy. And then in the fine print, Siri's personal context understanding, on-screen awareness, and in-app applications are in development and will be available with a future software update. So that's not exactly saying mea culpa. Maybe they should take that whole paragraph out. Yeah.
It's what I think what this is. I sometimes think that one of the things I've often said about Apple is that, wow, unlike Google, unlike Microsoft, unlike a lot of other companies where I'm so aware of all of the internal fighting and backbiting and undermining that happens, like, wow, Apple seems to act with one concerned mind. And that can be overstated. What happened, this debacle happened after a long series of, I'm sure, very intense arguments inside Cupertino about marketing, engineering, the C-suite, basically. And in this case, the people with the right argument lost that argument. In a good, healthy environment, which I think Apple is, that means that the next time that person or that group or that junta makes that argument, they basically might be listened to a little bit harder. So hopefully we won't see another embarrassment like this.
Let's take a break. It's not really the big story of the week, but I couldn't resist. Yeah. I just thought it was fascinating.
There is tea. We must spill it.
There was tea. We have to spill it. Andy Anatko, Alex Lindsay, Jason Snell, MacBreak Weekly continues in a moment. But first, a word from our sponsor, Bitwarden. I've been praising Bitwarden for a couple of years now, and I was very pleased to see, I think it was Wired picked it now as the best password manager. And they said the same thing I've been saying, which is because it's open source. That makes such a difference to me. And I've always felt like any program that uses cryptography has to be open source so that experts can look at it. And you, if you're an expert in code, can look at it and say, yeah, it's doing what it says it's going to do. It does it with well-known and trusted technologies, and there's no backdoors, that kind of thing. And you can assure yourself with Bitwarden, all of that's true. That's why Bitwarden is the trusted leader, and not just in passwords, but in secrets and like your API keys and things, and passkey management as well. 10 million users know this across 180 countries. What you may not know is Bitwarden's also great for business, over 50,000 business customers worldwide. In fact, they've entered 2025 as the essential security solution for organizations of all sizes, consistently ranked number one in user satisfaction by G2, recognized as a leader in Software Review's data quadrant. Bitwarden continues to protect businesses worldwide. So maybe I could talk about a feature that you might be particularly important this time of year. It's tax season, right? For years, I would get calls on the radio show from tax preparers saying, or actually more like from customers saying, my tax preparer wants me to email them all of my information. Is that secure? No. But Bitwarden will let you securely send your financial documents to your accountant or tax preparer. They've got a feature called Bitwarden Send. Every preparer should be using this, and you should be using it. End-to-end encryption, open source, ensuring your tax forms remain protected. And what's great is the preparers, the recipients, don't even need an account to access them. Bitwarden's so great. Avoid risky email attachments that give your personal information to anybody who can intercept them. Instead, share confidential tax documents and anything private with password protection. You can put expiration dates in it. After April 15th, this data is no longer good. You can have view limits, which means you can have full control over who can see your sensitive information. There are new findings from Bitwarden and 451 Research. This is a study they commissioned that highlights, despite the rise of multi-factor, two-factor, 65% of enterprises don't use it. They rely solely on passwords. So strong pass and passkeys, forget it. So the strong password management is really important in security and compliance strategies. And of course, Bitwarden supports two-factor, multi-factor in Bitwarden, so it makes it convenient and easy to use so you can encourage your employees to use it. Password management has been cited as the top IAM challenge for 35% of organizations. And only 21% implement passwordless. Only 21% implement passwordless. Enterprises facing ongoing credential security risks. Bitwarden offers enterprises essential tools to strengthen their security posture: end-to-end encryption, MFA enforcement, secure password sharing. These all address both current password dependencies and future authentication needs. This is so important for your business. And it's also important because if it's complicated, no one's going to use it. So Bitwarden really prioritizes simplicity. It has to be easy to set up. It should only take a few minutes. Bitwarden supports importing from most password management solutions, so it's a seamless transfer. And as I said, Bitwarden is open source. That's really important. It means it can be inspected by anyone. It is regularly audited by third-party experts, and they always publish the full report because they are open. They're transparent. Can't say that for everyone. Your business deserves an effective solution for enhanced online security. Use the password manager I use, Steve Gibson uses, the only one we recommend. Get started today with Bitwarden's free trial of a Teams or Enterprise plan, or get started for free across all devices as an individual user. Bitwarden.com/twit. Check it out at bitwarden.com/twit. We really love Bitwarden, and I think you will too, especially for your business. And if you have friends and family who are not using a password manager, I beg of you, tell them about Bitwarden. It's free for individuals, free forever, and they need to use it. Bitwarden.com/twit. Here's some good news. Apple executives believe you will love the upcoming iOS overhaul.
What a relief. They're still
go.
living down the last time where they said that nobody wants this and nobody's going to like our stuff. And it's a weird marketing choice. So I'm glad they're back on the train now, on the wagon.
You may remember we talked last week. Mark Gurman reported iOS 19 is going to be, quote, one of the most dramatic software overhauls in its history. And now Bloomberg reports Apple executives are confident. Do you think it was a phone call where they called up and said, I just want you to know, Mark, we're confident.
You're going to love it.
Now,
users will
this
love
is off
this.
the record, no attribution on deep background. We think this is good.
We have learned from Vision OS that people love round icons. They love them. The redesign will span across Apple's biggest platforms. It will, according to Gurman, look a little bit like Vision OS. They'll adopt the design principles introduced in Vision OS. By the way, are we going to get Gurman on next week? Is that true?
Working on it.
We can ask him. We say, Mark, how do you know Apple executives believe users will love the upcoming overhaul? It's interesting that, obviously, Apple planted that. It's interesting that Apple felt the need to plant that.
Well, who knows? But it's. I mean, we talked a little bit about this last week about how iOS 7 was the last huge overhaul of at least the mobile OS, and they really had to walk a lot of the direction back and make it a little bit more productive. One thing that I've been thinking of the last week though is like, so there's the rumors about folding phones, folding MacBook, folding iPad are starting to accelerate. What if, as part of this overhaul, they're trying to give macOS a redesign to make a little bit more sense if it had a touch interface? Like if they were to create a foldable MacBook that, when unfolded, could be just a 16-inch tablet that could be used in and of itself.
Yeah, it is. If you think about their stories about chips, right? That every M chip that gets generated they know what all the systems are that are going to use that chip. Like that's part of their integrated model. There is no way you would build a next generation cross operating system design language without anticipating your next few years of products on the roadmap. Like if there's a touchscreen MacBook, like maybe because we've heard those rumors, and it's like, well, of course that would be one of the challenges that they would want to address in doing a new design like this.
Gurman also talks in his Sunday Power On newsletter, which has become a staple of this program. 4 new iPhones, including an iPhone 17 Air. Well, now that's not this year, is it? Or is it? No, that would be next year. Next year. But he says this year, there is going to...
17 Airs this year, this fall.
Oh, it is this year. Oh, yeah, 17. I'm sorry, I can't count. We have 16 now, right? Okay. Thank you. The company will roll out one entry-level phone. Well, I think they already did that, the 16E, right? 2 high-end models.
He means the 17, the base model 17.
The 17, 17 Pro, 17 Pro Max, and then a 17 Air. Okay, that all makes sense.
Right.
Yeah. It will be thinner than the rest. There is some chatter that it might not have ports. This might be the one everybody's been talking about.
Gurman says no. Gurman says that they thought about in something that I looked in our notes. Andy and I both twigged too, where he's like, they're afraid that the EU will be angry at them for eliminating USB-C, which is stupid. And I'm sure that is not that. Maybe Gurman's source said that, but there's no way because there's a specific carve out If you have no ports, the EU doesn't care that you don't have USB-C. It's only
explicit.
if you have ports.
They have a separate document that's an explainer Q&A about what does this mean. And as Jason said, it is explicit that says that if your device, that if your phone does not have any ports whatsoever, such as, and it's charged only by wireless charging, it is not affected by this. So yeah, so I don't know where he was going there.
So this report did not come from Mark Gurman. The port-free rumor, I don't know where it came from. Let me see. I'm trying to find it. Sonny Dixon.
Yeah.
Sonny Dixon actually shared some, he's a long time, he's usually pretty reliable, especially when it comes to things like the supply chain. He showed the slugs, the dummies of the first iPhone 17. Here's the 4 different models. It has buttons.
So these are supposedly basically what the case manufacturers are betting on the phone looks like, but it really, but
They're
it
not
really,
from Apple.
well, who knows? It's unsourced, but it is. These are products that are commissioned by case manufacturers to have a physical object that they can put inside a purported case. But it does mean that what you have these large companies that are putting lots and lots of money on tooling, they would not be speculating on what it looks like. They're based on designs that they think are pretty good, or at least good enough to get a head start on. But it is, and unlike the renders and unlike the CAD files we've been seeing beforehand, it is kind of fun to see them as actual physical objects, particularly stacked up next to each other. Yeah. I think that the camera bump is probably going to be controversial for some people because it is such a detour for Apple's phone design language, but it does open up a lot of possibilities, I think, for case design and for camera design.
The new Air will, according to Gurman, have the C1 modem that was in the iPhone 16e.
Yep.
Better battery life. We're seeing that, right? More responsive data in congested conditions. But the new M3 Air iPad does not have it, nor does the regular iPad, nothing, nor the MacBook Air. So, although maybe this is a chance to do a cellular Mac once they get the internal modem working.
I think the one that surprised me was ProMotion, because that is a thing that we've talked about here, how the table stakes for phones are getting to the point where Apple's lower refresh models look a little bad. And Gurman says that this Air, which is not a Pro phone, will still have ProMotion.
It will.
Yeah.
That's good.
That's what he says. And I wonder, and honestly, I wonder if some of it is actually power savings, which seems weird because a higher refresh rate would seem like it might be a problem. But I believe those phones also, those screens have the ability to ramp down the frame rate when they're not in use. And if that's a power saver, it sounds like a lot of decisions were made because this is going to be a thinner phone, which means the overall battery volume is less. And they're trying to keep, he says they will keep the battery level basically the same as in other models. And that means that they're finding every way they can possibly save on power.
Yeah. Then there's this foldable phone that wouldn't be this year, to be next year.
Yeah, next year or the year after, he says. Yeah.
That's interesting. And then next year,
Ming-Chi Kuo had a piece last week that was basically adding a couple of details, but also rounding up all of the information he thinks he's put together over the past year. And so one of the highlights of his report and this new report is that it is going to be a premium phone. It's going to cost like $2,000, $2,500, which makes sense. I mean, that's what a folding phone costs. These panels are just not cheap. And also, we talked about how Apple's machine is a machine that makes profits based on selling high-end hardware with a good markup. This is absolute catnip for the iPhone product line.
I guess. I mean, I have like, and I was like negative interest, not even zero interest in a foldable phone. Every person I know that has bought a foldable phone didn't buy a second one. So far, it just their next upgrade to the foldable phone was like a moment that they had, and then it became so problematic that I just don't. It seems.
But
I do go ahead.
But this is the moment where Apple says now it's worth doing, right? And that's the question. Is it's easy to say, when he wants an iPod with a video, right? Like it is.
I get it.
Maybe this is the moment. I mean, Gurman's report says that they basically gotten the wrinkle out of the center of the screen. And while I share your skepticism about this as a use case, I don't know. Apple has the good tablet.
Yeah.
And the OS supports tablet apps really well. And by all accounts, this seems to be a nice iPhone that unfolds into an iPad mini. And that is an interesting use case to me.
That's super hot, particularly if it's thin, particularly when it's folded, it's thin. And we've seen like Oppo, I think Oppo has a new phone out that it is when you fold it, it's only marginally thicker than an iPhone 16. And the only cost that iPhone Fold users might pay is they might not get that really great array of cameras they would get with the top of the line iPhone 17 Pro.
It'd be more like the Air.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like
iPhone that turns into an iPad is I don't have let me make it clear, I don't have $2,000, let alone $2,500 to spend on a phone. But if I were at another higher level of money, that would be very much in line with my interest. I do know some people who are. I think Alex is right that it's not a mainstream product, partly because of the price, but the progress has been made since Samsung made their first Fold, which was a semi-disaster. The ditch is no longer really noticeable. They're now really flat. They're a lot more reliable. They're a lot more durable. They will never be as durable as a standard slab phone, but they're a lot more durable. And I do know a lot of people that have replaced their first foldable with another foldable.
Do you see a lot of foldables out in the wild? Interesting.
In my group,
I never.
I have to say that I have never seen someone on public transportation or even just like out in on Boston Common using one. But that doesn't mean there's a reason why every major manufacturer has one.
But you go to the club or the polo matches, and there are a lot of people with them. I find.
Yeah.
Actually, I have I like the Flip, but see, that's not. For me, this is going the other direction. This is to make a smaller form factor that then folds out to a normal size phone.
There are a lot of really cool. This is why I love foldable displays. That there's so many ways to change up the paradigm that we've been stuck with for now like 10, 15 years with phones, and for 20 or 30 years with laptops. I love the idea that designers who only have stuff in their sketchbooks that, gosh, wouldn't it be nice to be able to do this sometime, can now actually realize that. There's an Android manufacturer that I can't remember the name, but they this is why like Android and Windows, this is one of the things that are singularly wonderful about them. There are so many manufacturers that there's room to try out really weird things and see if they fly. So there's one Android phone designer, that not a major one, that's decided to do a slab style folding phone. So it folds out into a regular size phone, but make it fold twice so that it folds into like a box of Tic Tacs size sort of thing. And I don't know if there's a market for that, but I'm glad that someone is trying to make it, and see if for the 1,000 people in the world who are like, oh my God, finally something that I can put into a compact purse, or now have like a smartphone they can put into I love to failures are just as illustrative as successes, because here's what we've done, we tried it, but here's what the people who liked this part of it, we will carry this over into the next design and try again.
I watched last night, I was just because I wanted to catch up on 2013's Vision of AI, I watched Her again. And he has a really little phone that opens up, that unfolds. Yeah. That he carries around in his pocket. That's
an idea that I wish that people hadn't given up on. I love the idea of two screens separated by a mechanical hinge, because damn, I mean, it's obviously if people have a problem with a ditch, they're not going to like a gap that's actual hinge. But the idea of so many different applications where you're reading or consuming media, where left page and right page are absolutely a working paradigm. So many use cases where I want to have my email app open on the left page, I want to have a notes-taking app or calendar app open in the right page, or even just the ability to fold it, use it like a traditional laptop that has a 180-degree or 360-degree screen. I want to be able to fold it back upon itself and basically have it as an easel, so I can be watching videos while I'm having lunch. I really wish they hadn't given up on that quite so quickly, because that's one of my favorite form factors. I thought there was a lot of potential there.
Another thing Gurman points out is this week the Apple 100 offsite is happening. All the top 100 executives, this is something Steve Jobs pioneered, go off-site. Now, Gruber said that Steve, remember, brought the Mobile Me group together in the auditorium and said, "You guys you're ruining our reputation," etc. I just wonder if maybe when they all go and they're sitting at the giant teacups or something at Disneyland, if they don't have if Tim Cook just doesn't say something to them. Gurman doesn't think so because there's enough responsibility for the AI failure to go around. He says the company's marketing heads, Jaws and Bob Borchers, are ultimately responsible. But then there's Tor Myron's marketing communications team, which made the TV ads. They earlier this year made the Squish ad. Craig Federighi, that couldn't integrate the features in a compelling fashion. Of course, John Gianandrea, who gets all the heat because he's leading the AI group. The product managers, and of course, Cook. So he says, given the nature of the collective failure,
you're all fired.
We're going to start over and put somebody else in charge. Anyway, I wonder where they're going. Do you know where they're going? Anybody? Just be fun to see 100 Apple executives all at Disney World.
That I don't know.
No, I get to sit in the front seat of the Millennium Falcon. No, I get to sit in the front seat of the Millennium Falcon. Slappy, 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 slappy.
I think this one might be more like Esalen. They need to.
Yeah. They're gonna really need to think here.
Yeah.
A lot of whiteboard activity and beanbags involved. Yeah.
What shall we do about the working class? I tire of their petty claims for compensation for the work that they.
If you're gonna do that, you got to go up to the redwoods of the Bohemian Grove. If you really want a plan to take over the world. Actually, next Intelligent Machines tomorrow, we have the executive of the Future of Humans Institute, who is a very respected physicist at UCSC, an AI expert. This was the group that put out that letter to pause AI for 6 months. They're really concerned about superintelligence. Like, they think it's an extinction event for humans. So this should be interesting tomorrow. You may be happy that Apple AI is just making little emojis and doesn't really want to take over the world or anything. So I'm actually really looking forward to hearing what's the worst that could happen. And the good news, iPhone owners won't even know what's happening. All right, we're going to take a little break. Future of Life Institute. Thank you. FOLI. Folly. They probably don't use that acronym. Should be fine. Anthony Aguirre will be joining us tomorrow on Intelligent Machines. Thank you, Anthony. Our show today brought to you. We'll have more with MacBreak Weekly in just a bit, including a fabulous Vision Pro segment. We're
gonna rock out.
Rock out. Enter Vision Pro.
Goats shall be
eggs at night. This episode of MacBreak Weekly brought to you by Zscaler, the leader in cloud security. Did I ever tell you James Hetfield said I have a very nice voice? There's a story there, but we'll save that for later. Enterprises have spent billions of dollars on firewalls and VPNs. How's that working out for y'all? Well, breaches continue to rise by an 18% year-over-year increase in ransomware attacks. $75 million record payout last year. So I guess those perimeter defenses really aren't working as you'd hoped. Traditional security tools actually expand your attack surface with public-facing IPs. That's something that bad guys can hang their hat on, and more easily than ever with AI tools. They're really getting clever. If you listen to security now, they have some. It's amazing what they're doing. And we had a story. It was fascinating. Last week, Steve was talking about a hacker gang that got in through a VPN. And they browsed around, and they couldn't set off their ransomware bombs. So they found a camera, a security camera that was running Linux, and they were able to hack that. And they actually ran the whole thing from the software in the camera. And all of this is because AI makes this easier, right? And then, of course, once this was the problem. Once people get in, they get through those perimeter defenses. Most security just assumes, well, anybody inside the network is good. They're an employee. So what do bad guys do? They can go anywhere inside the network. They look for things like those cameras to attack. They look for where you back stuff up, and they also start exfiltrating embarrassing information, customer information, emails, that kind of thing. And of course, your perimeter defenses struggle to inspect that encrypted traffic at scale. So it's easy for them to leak that out. Here's the bottom line. Hackers are exploiting traditional security infrastructure, and they're doing it with AI to outpace your defenses. It's time to rethink your security. Do not let bad actors win. They're innovating. They're exploiting your defenses. You need Zscaler Zero Trust plus AI. How does it work? Well, for one thing, it hides your attack surface, making apps and IPs invisible. That's huge just by itself. But they also eliminate that lateral movement I was talking about. They can't find the other holes in your system. Users are only allowed to connect to specific apps that they are explicitly authorized to use, not the entire network. And Zscaler continuously verifies every request based on identity and context. Plus, you'll like it because it simplifies your job with AI-powered automation for security management. Zscaler analyzes 500 billion daily transactions looking for those threats, those needles in that giant haystack. How do they do it? With AI, of course. Hackers cannot attack what they can't see. Protect your organization with Zscaler Zero Trust plus AI. You can learn more at zscaler.com/security. That's zscaler.com/security. We thank them so much for supporting MacBreak Weekly, and will you support us when you use that address? So please do zscaler.com/security. Let's do the Vision Pro segment now.
What do you see? What do you know? It's time to talk the Vision Pro.
A little headbanging from Jason Snell. You've been watching that Metallica Vision Pro. Night into light.
Vision Pro.
Sorry. I've seen good things about it. The band is very happy with the Vision Pro Metallica concert.
Sits on the front edge of a lot of this stuff. I mean, if you say there's a new technology, Metallica,
they love
where
it.
do we sign up?
Yeah,
Like,
which is great.
Been that way forever.
Yeah. So you've watched it? Anybody?
Yeah, watched it a couple times. And
how long is it? It's long, right?
It's 3 songs.
Yeah,
for an Apple Immersive, it's long.
I thought it was the whole concert. 3 songs. Okay.
3 songs. But for an Apple Immersive, it's longer. I think it's like 20 minutes, half an hour. I mean, it's long. And it's a doc. It's not just the performances. It has the performances, but it has the thing where they like also you see them behind the scenes and you hear them talking between the songs and before the songs, and that's good. I'm as always super curious what Alex thinks about this, but I'll just say it simultaneously reinforced in me just how amazing this technology is, and that Apple is still trying to overproduce it. I felt like, I don't want to sound like an old man here, and I know Ben Thompson at Stratechery was like, they should just have one camera angle for the whole concert, which no. But if I had
capture
to say,
the band's full performance,
there's a tempo that you want where it's like cut, and the tempo is, I'd say, twice as fast as it should be.
I hate that.
There are too many times where I'm getting in the scene and I'm looking over there, and then there's a cut and I'm looking at nothing, and I have to go find the person again. And that happens in immersive, but the solution is you got to cut less. It doesn't mean you can't cut. It doesn't mean you can't use other cameras. It's really effective. There are some amazing moments. The highlight of the whole show is when they come down to the front of the stage and are singing with the fans in the front row. Yeah. And as he walks away, as Hetfield walks away, it's the camera stays on the fans who completely lose it and start crying and are hugging each other because they can't believe the moment they've just had. Wow. And you get to witness it. And you couldn't do that. Plus, they're on a giant stage where they're often like 50 yards apart from each other. So you really couldn't do it as a single camera. But I do think, and it really is amazing, but I think they are still producing it too much. I think that there need to be fewer cuts. It needs to feel like you're immersed in a way that you can't if it's cutting every 5 seconds.
Filmed in Mexico City during the sold-out second-year finale of their M72 World Tour, Apple built a custom stage layout featuring 14 Apple Immersive video cameras using a mix of stabilized cameras, cable-suspended cameras, remote control camera dolly systems. And you see them in the video. Well, I guess how could you not see them, right, if you have that many? Yeah. What do you think, Alex? Did they cut too rapidly?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I thought about watching it, I watched it a couple times just to kind of get you have to kind of watch it the first time, you get the experience, then you watch the second time, start analyzing things. And I've streamed Metallica, and I also went to see Metallica's Fathom event, which was in theaters. So I've seen a lot of different versions of this specific band, and I think that one of the things I really realize there's this collision going on with the current products that are going out. Is the Apple Vision Pro a new film medium, or is it an experience platform? And I think you got to decide when you make something, whether you're trying to give someone an experience of being there, or whether you're giving them a 180-degree film.
That's Ben Thompson's complaint. He said, at no point did I feel like I was at the concert.
Yeah, but there were parts of it that, so there were. It
was a documentary.
And what I will say is it's some of the best concert experience that I do a lot of this, the best I've ever seen. Like it is really, even at its, rough edges. I mean, and many of the other Apple releases in 180 degrees, I have been very negative about. Like, I just felt like they shouldn't have even released them. The concert for one, the weekend, all those I just thought were horrible. But this is the first one I was like, wow, this is really good. Now there's a bunch of things I don't like, but this one was like really enjoyable and really impressive. There's moments, there's a whole bunch of moments that I wouldn't do and I still wouldn't do. And then there were some moments that I wouldn't do that I was like, oh, that was a pretty good idea. Like, so there's a trucking shot at the beginning behind James as he goes under the stage, and moving a camera like that in 180 degrees is not something we normally do. And it works so well. Like, it is just magical. Like, and I was like, I'm writing that down. Like, we're gonna do that more often. The almost every crowd shot could have been cut out as far as I'm concerned. I hated the crowd shots. The one that Jason was talking about is an exception to that because he was there and then he walks away. But these random cut to the crowd, many of them were way too close. And most of them were superfluous, in my opinion. The wide shots, sure, maybe one, but they did it too often because who cares? And then the shot with Lars by his drum set was just 2 feet too close. I know why they did it. They needed to put the camera on the riser rig, but the problem is it just wasn't quite right. Nobody
wants to be that close to Lars Ulrich.
Any drummer, frankly.
There's a couple shots that they force you to look up, and the convergence doesn't work when you look up. So when you look up, it makes your eyes cross just a little bit because it's not quite. You don't want to put a 180 degree lens there, and so you always want people to kind of have this circle there. They did these black and whites that are not 180 degrees. They're 3D that were kind of faked into 180 degrees, and as a result, they're really big in front of you, and it was too close. The black and white ones of each person. But one thing that they did there that I thought was really cool is they had a much softer matte on the edges that kind of just faded. And I'm going to use that all the time. Like, I realized that there was something that instead of having this hard matte that's like a 3 or 4, maybe 5 degree matte that sits on the edge, and you look over and you see this black line where the 180 ends. I kind of like this idea of an iris that has this slow, fade out. That I hadn't seen before. I've never done it and haven't seen it before. And I was like, I love that. Because you don't know when to stop looking over to the side because it just kind of disappears to the side. Beautiful presentation there. The shots where James is like singing to or some of the other ones are singing to the audience, and the audience is reaching out towards them. It's a great 3D moment. Yeah. You get the geometry. But it also felt, the wide shots all feel soft. Most of them felt a little soft. I didn't really feel like I was looking at 8K per eye. I don't think I was. I think it was more like 4K per eye, maybe 6K per eye, but it wasn't the full resolution that I think that the headset's capable of. But overall, I guess I would say it was a pretty exciting experience that as someone who owns the headset, you just feel like, I can see this isn't, it literally is the best concert experience I've had that when I wasn't there, and so it's a great step forward. There's still a ton of room to grow for everyone. I cannot wait for the new camera to come out and people to experiment. Because I will say to back to what was mentioned about it should be a single camera. The stage that we used to use in 3210, which was the old ILM stage, Metallica actually rehearsed there, for their tours. And I was like, man, if you took them and put them in the old stage they rehearsed in, lit it up and put a camera in there, with some mild effects and so on and so forth, I may enjoy that more. to feel like they're doing a concert for me there rather than bouncing around the stage.
Well, it's what is the concert, right? This concert is a stadium concert, right? So you wouldn't shoot a stadium concert the same way you'd shoot a concert at a different kind of venue, and it was additionally challenging. I agree with you about the fan shots. There were. It's just one of those. I actually wonder how much of this was Metallica and how much of it was Apple, because I wonder if Metallica wanted it to feel a little more like a concert film. But there were and I praised that moment where they sing with the fans and all that. But like, there are way too many moments where I am really, really getting into the fact that the musicians are playing and performing, and suddenly I got to spend 10 seconds watching a bunch of people bounce around in the front row,
well, and
I don't care. And I see them from the back in the crane shots. I don't need to. Right, like weird decisions.
And some of those are practical decisions that they don't have a shot.
Yeah, they got to cover.
They're covering. They're papering over something. The biggest paper over of the whole thing was during Enter the Sandman. They never went. They never went to Kirk. Kirk is doing a solo, and they never go to him, and they can't. Yeah. You could tell it was the balls. I watched it. They have these bouncing balls that they dropped.
It was covering they were
covering
each ball was So they went to the cable cam and pulled back from the drummer, and it was couldn't. Yeah, you could see it, but it's good. I mean, I agree 100%, Alex. This is really great. It is one of the best things that they've done, and yet I had that moment where I'm like, yeah. You're getting there, but this is not the end product. Like, it's just not, just a little, like, they're finding their way. And I agree, in a different space where they're not, I mean, literally at one point, they're all like 50 yards apart from each other on this giant stage. And what do you do with that where you can't see the band? They're playing to the giant stadium audience, and that's great. But like for this, it's actually kind of the wrong experience for that. But it's great.
And
it's really
Meta has run up against these rocks for years with the Quest and their streaming concerts. Is that you go to a stadium because it's really hard to get a band to put all the energy and time and effort and money into something that is only going to be played. It's really expensive because you got to pay them for what they would have made. That stadium generated $8 million or $10 million for the band. Does Apple really want to pay them $8 million to play like in a warehouse, and so it's hard to get bands to, if you want all the effects, it's hard to get the bands to do that.
Is there a time in the future though when this becomes less expensive and these headsets become more ubiquitous, where bands will do this instead of touring, or that concert goers will do this instead of spending a lot of money and time?
Well, I mean, obviously, I'm working on a project for that. so to theaters. So the
you want to move them to theaters though, not headsets.
The advantage of that is mostly that they're around each other. They're around 300 other people singing, not by themselves on their headset. Cool. Because I think but I will say that I do think that there's some future where we build. Someone's going to build a studio that's designed for the headset, and it's going to be kind of the Austin City Limits, Tiny Desk, WEX.
That would be smart.
Like WEXP, is that right? The one out of what? Sorry,
KEXP. Seattle?
KEXP, in Seattle. Like, they all have these sets where bands come in. You're not changing the set every time. You're not on tour. Like, for instance, I think that I would be super excited to see Tiny Desk put a 180-degree camera. That would be an incredible experience, to see that. So those are the kind of things, those little spaces, I think we'll see more of that. Like, Tiny Desk doing that would cost almost nothing because they already got the band.
I mean, and this, in the chat room, we're talking about this too. Like, concerts are special. Going to them is special. They're also one time only, and maybe not in your town, and very expensive. And we can say, well, the Vision Pro is very expensive. Yes, it is. Although maybe in the long run, these kinds of devices will be less expensive. But it doesn't matter if you've got the money, even if they don't come to your town and you can't afford to travel, whether it's money or because your family or whatever. Like, there are lots of reasons where you miss a great concert. And then I would say, even for the artists, a little like live theater, which we've also talked about in terms of the Vision Pro, like, they are ephemeral. Once the experience is over, it's over forever. And I think if I was an artist, I'd think, well, wait a second. I'm going to still do all my dates, but I also want a product that I can sell after the fact to all the people who couldn't come because all the seats were full, or because we weren't in their town, or because we had to cancel, or whatever the reason they couldn't make it. And I can sell them that experience. That gives me another product to sell that's not the same as a live product, but it's something that's better than our other ancillary, like just the audio or just a concert film on Prime Video or something like that.
Yeah, I mean Taylor Swift obviously and Beyonce blew that door right wide open where people are, it doesn't. I talked to a friend whose wife and daughter went to see the film. Of it a week before they went to see it live. It didn't matter to them. Like they had tickets. They want tickets to all the things, right? Connected to those. And so I think that those different experiences are going to be, and I do think that theatrical experiences will be interesting, but again, that they have the same challenge. Fathom has had the same challenge that Apple has, which is that you're shooting like concert films, like there's thousands of people, and that subtly tells you you're not there because there's, the advantage of building a set without seeing a lot of other people is it feels like this is a concert for you, and so I think that that's going to be the interesting thing that I think Apple's going to be able to take advantage of. We're already talking to venues. Like I'm just waiting for that camera to drop. So of which venues do we put the camera into and using like the sound checks at first just to capture 2 or 3 songs that, for people to experience. So I think that a lot of us are, super excited to see. And what's great about it is that again, for the first time ever, we're months away, 2 or 3 months away from having a camera that isn't a science project. This whole system has been junked up by either low resolution, low frame rate, or really complicated. Those are and they've been huge bottlenecks. And regardless of, people think that $30,000 is a lot for a camera, but the reality is that from a production camera perspective, it's $1,000, $1,500 a day to rent. It becomes something that you can go out and shoot with often. And I think we're going to see an explosion of experiments that a lot of them won't work, but I think a lot of them will. And again, I don't think that they exist without the headset. When we talk about the expense of the headset, an 8K per eye, 90 frame per second headset is what drives 8K per eye, 90 frame per second footage, and I think that that's the thing that it's going to be really interesting. It's going to be an interesting summer.
Yeah. Metallica's new bassist, Robert Trujillo, new for the last decade.
New 2003. I think of him as the new bassist too.
I still think of him as the new bassist, although I love him. Hollywood Reporter had an interview with him. He said when the band first saw it, he said it was very real. James, he said, was like playing the drums as he's watching himself singing. Trujillo says, I found myself riffing and playing air guitar too. It's almost impulsive. That's what I think the reaction will be for anybody who watches it, even people who have never seen Metallica or aren't familiar. It's hard not to get pulled into the performance. He says it's a very physical experience in a lot of ways. I would have loved to have this when I was a kid in the 70s, enamored with bands like Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin. Imagine seeing Jimi Hendrix playing guitar and having him right in front of you. So I think he's probably right. This might be a new way to experience music that isn't a concert, that is a performance, but something else. He also snuck up behind a couple who were getting a demo at the Apple Store in Hollywood we're watching the concert, and they took off the headset, and there he is in person, which must have been kind of scary. I hope they picked a younger.
I could almost smell the bassist.
I smell him.
Yeah.
So I think pretty cool. Cool.
I mean, I've been totally with you, Alex. It's like I'm going to get a lot more excited about these kind of experiences once it makes that leap of like what smartphones did for video, where everybody has a video camera, everybody has nonlinear editing, everybody can shoot whatever they want to and develop their own style and basically serve whatever niche they want. Because like as we're talking about like concert footage, I'm also thinking about the way that the Metropolitan Opera does their Met in HD broadcasts.
Yep.
And the way that the number of times I've been like in the orchestra seats at the Met, and I usually have binoculars with me because that's a way, if you can't afford the $400 seats, you can basically upgrade your cheap like back of the house seats with binoculars, because there are times where like I want to zoom in, I want to focus on like what this character is singing right now, or even I want to see like what the choristers are doing in the background right now. And the ability to if these kind of events, be it plays, be they concerts, be they opera, were recorded in this fashion where I'm just seated in the orchestra, there isn't like 100 camera angles, they're not like they're not switching angles and switching shots like on the director's whim, but I have the ability to essentially keep looking around. I can change the focal length of what I'm looking at so that if I do want to see, like there's some business going on in the background that, I won't go into a long story, but one of my favorite moments of the Met was there's a scene in Agrippina where this action is happening like at the front of the stage, but there's a bar, it's happening in a bar, like in the back of the stage. They're called supernumeraries or actors. They're people who don't have non-singing parts. They got to hold this scene for like 15, 20 minutes. And they had almost this entire, you could tell during rehearsals, they'd worked out this entire storyline of, okay, this guy's drunk off his butt. This other woman is like thinks it's amazing that he got drunk so early. They're taking selfies with him. He doesn't know. And it's like, I'm so glad that it Met in HD, of course, was focusing on the expensive tenor and the expensive soprano who were singing at the front of the stage. But I was so loving this action happening in the back and the ability to simply focus on what catches your attention and what you really want to look at. That I think is going to be transformative, and that's going to really increase my level of interest in this kind of presentation.
Well, and I think that we did some tests with the Ozos a long time ago that could have been done in 180, which was, I think I've talked about before. We took a stage play, an off-Broadway play, and we just put you where the best place to sit is for that scene. And so you just get, every scene we would change where that was. And so you would just sit in we would kind of, this is the best place to be to watch this unfold. And we maybe moved it a little bit. And it was the best play experience I've ever had. I was like, I could do this all the time, cause it's still live. It has this feel like you're looking around, you're watching everybody. It's not a camera shot, but it's still happening. It feels like it's happening right in front of you. And that was at a much lower resolution and a much lower frame rate. Yeah. So I'm excited.
People are going to figure things out. I'm thinking about that incredible shot in Rosemary's Baby, where there's the main character is like, can't quite see around a door because someone who's kind of doing something suspicious is making a phone call, but the door to the room is kind of half open. And if you see this in the movie theater, like when this scene happens, the entire audience goes.
They're trying to get around the door.
They're trying to see around the door because
the natural it draws you there. And
that's the sort of stuff that I think is going to be pretty incredible once this stuff lands.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that one of the great things is that Apple is spending the kind of money it takes to do some of these shows so that we learn a lot. Like I've learned stuff watching every Apple event, every Apple release. These cost millions of dollars. Like I don't know what I would have budgeted for that Metallica shoot. My budget would have been somewhere between $2 and $3 million for that shoot. I don't know what Apple spent, but for that many cameras and what it takes to do those and the sky cams and the prep and the post and everything else, it would have been at least that much money. And so for Apple to take those chances and do those, allow us to look at a bunch of things that some of us agree that they worked or didn't work, but it doesn't matter. We never had the budget to do that kind of thing. So Apple doing, taking, some of the hits here and being part, showing us that stuff. And again, there's in every Apple thing so far, every Apple release, I've seen a ton of things that I wouldn't do, but I've seen a couple things that I never thought would be possible that I go, oh, I'm definitely gonna, so I think that is exciting because they are investing in things that we wouldn't invest in otherwise, that we wouldn't have the money to do without somebody, because the market is small right now. But I think that it's going to be, so I think it's going to be really interesting to see. Again, I think it's a really one of the most exciting video releases Apple has put out so far. Yeah. And I'm hoping to see another one soon.
Nice.
More, please.
Well, that's your Vision Pro segment, everybody.
Now you see, now you know, we're done talking the Vision Pro.
Whiplash won and entered Sandman. That's three good classic
crowd
songs.
Pleaser.
Sleep with one eye open.
Pleasers. Yeah. Okay, let's take a break. You're watching MacBreak Weekly. Get it? We didn't know this when we played it. We didn't even have ads, but it turns out we have to take breaks. Andy Anako, Alex Lindsay, and Jason Snell. Great to have all three of you here. Explain to me, what is the theory behind Apple dropping its $23 million lawsuit against the recycler accused of stealing iPhones?
That was the theory. So what this was the kerfuffle that happened a few years ago, where when their recycles was found to be sort of holding on to certain recycled Apple Watches, and a lot of these devices were finding up in China.
Keep Canada. They were supposed to take them apart.
Right, exactly.
Supposed to destroy them. About 100,000 devices did not get destroyed. Yep. They sold them on instead.
Yeah, and so there was a lot of stuff going on. So this week, Apple sued this disassembler. About one day before the court was going to dismiss the suit anyway for lack of progress, Apple decided to withdraw it. And there's the theories that I've been seeing are that, number one, the discovery process on this would have been not very productive for Apple, because they would have had to talk about like what they do to phones, including the ones that they just simply destroy that could be recycled and sold on or given away, or that sort of thing.
They don't want it revealed that they are not in fact recycling them.
Yeah,
or
and
they're
also
not doing it properly.
Yes, and also someone who's I'm afraid I don't have their name, but
by the way, that is just a
speculation.
Guess.
Right,
That's
exactly
just pure speculation. We don't.
And
know.
Another speculation from someone who is in the industry of recycling basically said that the purpose of that lawsuit wasn't necessarily to win the lawsuit or to punish this company, but to put the fear of God into all the other companies that Apple does business with.
Yes.
That if you screw up, we will find out, and we will we will end a very harmonious relationship in much the same way that multiple characters.
Apple found out because auditors went to the facility. They found Apple Watches being stored in a section that didn't have any security cameras. Geep actually admitted the accusations that said, but it was a rogue employee, and it then sued the rogue employee. So, you know what? These kinds of things, this is complicated. I can see why it might not be anything suspicious. It might just be this is a.
Remember that every time we get something juicy about what goes on inside Apple, it's because they decided to fight a lawsuit. So
that's right.
This is sad news for all of us, but probably the right thing for Apple to do.
Yeah, they can be bad. Sonos, this is really not an Apple story, but I guess it's kind of peripheral to Apple, has decided not to do the Pinewood streaming video player. This was going to be something to compete directly with Apple TV. It was going to launch this year, and it was going to do something that even Apple TV hasn't managed to do, which is kind of unify all the different streaming platforms into one easy-to-use interface. But Sonos probably wisely decided that maybe they should get their app working first.
I don't even know what channel shows are on now. I just hit the little thing on my Apple TV controller and say this show.
Yeah, but that's why you never see any Netflix shows, because it doesn't search Netflix.
Yeah,
we talked about that. Yeah.
But I don't want to
this is a kind of move you do as a company when there are no other worlds to conquer. You finally control the entire premium audio digital space. Really, people want your hardware. They're paying a premium. You make huge profits. What could we do next? Let's do a video player too, right? I mean, I know so many people who use Sonos speakers with other video players or with their televisions directly, that it makes sense in that scenario. But as we all know, a year ago, Sonos, took a header, stepped in 1,000 rakes and is still reeling from that. They lost their executives as a part of it. And so this move is great to me because it was a move from another era, and the people who made that decision are gone because they blew it when it comes to their core product category. And you got to get right by your existing customers if you possibly can before you try to step out. But I don't think this is necessarily an illogical move if Sonos was at the top, but they fell apart. So
and as someone who has 14 semi-working amps from Sonos, that I just don't know how they get back on. The idea of, I just see the logo and I get upset.
I know, me too.
So that's the hard part. I think that's the challenge for them is they really torched this one. That's the shame.
Yeah.
There's some other news I thought was positive for Apple TV. So apparently Roku is testing a new thing where whenever you go back to the home screen, it will autoplay like an ad first.
Oh.
And And some people on Reddit have reported, hey, we saw this, reached out for comment. Roku said, oh, we're testing lots of things to aid in discovery, to products and partnerships and blah, blah. And it just, so that's the first time it really occurred to me that, wow, Apple TV will never do that to you, will do that to you. And although I do complain that, oh gosh, I wish they had like a $30 something to compare with, like a Chromecast with Google TV, which is a really nice 4K streamer, a dongle that costs like $30-$40. I don't know. Google doesn't do that, but I don't know that they will never do that. But whereas it would be worth spending lots of extra dollars on an Apple TV box, it doesn't necessarily do a whole lot more than Google TV or Roku. If I knew that I will never be forced to see a pre-roll ad just because I was stupid enough to pick up my remote and try to launch Netflix.
There is a rumor that there will be a new Apple TV this year. Is that credible, you think? I would buy it. I mean, I'll upgrade. I know it's expensive, but it is our sole way of watching TV now because we're all over
it's
the
my
top,
only interface to the I just have an Apple TV connected to the TV, and the TV is just a monitor. Like all this.
Well, I wish it were
channel
it's
stuff.
a smart TV with all that crap on it.
I have a smart. The TV is capable of more, but I just treat it like a monitor. It's not allowed to touch the internet.
I wish Samsung would let you take all that stuff off, but it pops up anyway. So, anybody, have you heard, Jason, a new Apple TV? Is that credible?
I mean, anything's possible. That's on a long cycle. I don't feel like there's any need in terms of the hardware. The only reason they might do it is if there's a particular video spec, a high-end spec that they want to support, or I think the most likely is if the chips that are currently in the model they're making are, being put to the end of their life and they need to do a chip refresh just to get on a more modern process. But like it is, I haven't written my story yet, but I bought a bunch of streamer boxes the other month after Mark Gurman talked about the Apple TV being a laggard, and there's no competition. There are some other streamer boxes that feel roughly as fast as the Apple TV, but there's nothing. I mean, there's lots of software work they need to do, but
it's not
hardware
perfect.
is fine.
Yeah, it's not perfect,
it's overkill.
But it's closer to perfect than anything else. And I have an NVIDIA Shield, which is probably the closest competition, and I like it. But it's Apple TV is always the winner.
I mean, the where Apple could. I mean, I think that technically the current Apple TV would do this as well, or is capable of it. Is technically the spec for the HDMI will support 4K 120 frames per second, which really makes a difference for live, sports.
That would be
really now. Nice. The problem is that the pipeline to deliver 4K 120 is really hard. So it's a ask me how I know.
Yes.
so anyway, so 120 frame 4K 120 is a difficult thing to deliver, but that's the kind of thing Apple could take on because they have, like, let's say MLS. If Apple a year from now or this year or next year suddenly started dumping MLS as a test. At 120 frames per second or MLB or whatever, it puts an incredible amount of pressure on everybody else because it's really hard. This is what Apple's good at. It's really hard to do. You need control of the entire pipeline, and that's what they have, and they could force everybody into a briar patch that would be very, very difficult for everyone else to manage. So.
I just wish that they would do something like Leo, you mentioned the NVIDIA Shield, which is my streaming box, and one of my favorite features of it is the simple fact that when I don't have like gigabit internet at my house, and I'm not sure if I would pay extra to a streaming service to have 4K streaming, but I can get a 1080 stream and it will automatically upscale it to 4K.
It has built-in upscaling. It's quite,
and it's
good.
really, really good.
Yeah,
and that's the sort of stuff that makes me think, okay, there's a reason why I didn't buy the 30 or 40, or there's a reason why the $40 dongle is on the bedroom TV and the $150 thing is on the nice living room TV. And that's the sort of stuff I want to see from Apple.
The Google TV interface, not great, or Android. Is it Android or Google? I can't remember.
It is Android TV.
It's Android. It's not great. It's better than Fire TV, which, talk about ads, it's unusable.
It's terrible. And then the Roku is just the most generic. Like,
it's totally generic.
It's fine, but it's super generic. It's very clearly, even though you can buy a Roku box, their whole strategy really is, let's be as generic as possible so we can be put in TVs. Yeah. And it is super generic. Amazon, the Fire TV, functionally, in terms of its feature set, is actually pretty great. But you can't use it because it's just an ad delivery medium. Right. And like, I literally set mine up. I don't know if I told you the story, but I set mine up to test it. And the first thing I did, I got to the home screen, literally the home screen. And it sat there for about 10 seconds and it began playing an a commercial, not even a promo for something on the box, literally a commercial for a business in my area. And I thought, what are we even doing here?
Yeah.
Like, why? I just wanted to rip it off my TV immediately because, like, that's Amazon. Amazon just wants to sell you stuff. Even if you buy their high-end streamer box, doesn't matter. You're just going to get ads everywhere. And like, if you don't care, I guess that's great. But it's a shame because it's actually not a bad interface otherwise, and it has some things that it does that Apple doesn't do. But oh well.
It's a really interesting. I find advertising to be interesting because like my family is completely shielded from it at this point. Like I don't like, and I realized how little, and it's a problem for like theatrical releases and all kinds of other things. Is that there's a big chunk of the population now that is basically opting out. You know, where I just don't see. You know, I pay for YouTube Premium, and I have a bunch of streaming services that don't have the ads in them, and I just don't know what movies are coming out. I don't know what the new thing is because I just don't see that on repeat all the time. And my kids have kind of grown up without it ever. So they don't know, like I think when premium dropped off because my credit card changed or whatever to a new card or whatever, they were like, who lives like my kids had never, like they were like 14 years old, had never seen, you know, more than a couple ads against each other ever. Yeah. And I think it's really interesting to see like what pockets of the viewing public are completely just cutting out of being able to see, because now we don't get magazines, we don't get, you know, like we listen to audiobooks, we listen to, you know, like there's so many places where subscription has replaced, you know, all of the content, and it's just I don't know how that impacts all of these things, but it is interesting that because I can't go back, I can't go watching ads and like interruptions that are ads. If like YouTube TV stopped allowing me to fast forward through the ads, I'd probably just quit.
We can't talk about it. We don't know what's going on, but the Brits are having a secret court hearing on iCloud encryption. Everybody and their brother, all the media are saying it should be public. But of course, this is kind of like our secret FISA courts. The BBC is asked that they make it available. Reuters, Financial Times, The Guardian, even members of Congress who don't have a lot of clout anymore in the UK government, but Ron Wyden and Andy Biggs and Alex Padilla and Warren Davidson and Zoe Lofgren have all asked the UK to let us know what's going on in this trial, but the UK says no. So, and Apple's not allowed to talk about it. In fact, Apple was very clever because they never did admit that that the UK government demanded that they break iCloud encryption. They just stopped allowing UK citizens to install ADP. That was a sufficient canary to let us know that they weren't going to go along. Now, they may be ordered in some way. We don't know what this court hearing is all about, but maybe they'll find a way to let us know secretly.
I see no reality in which Apple is forced to at least temporarily allow backdoor access to every iCloud customer in the entire world without in some way informing the entire world that do not trust encryption, or we have to turn it off for everybody.
Yeah.
We can't say why. They would much rather, I mean, there's no downside to them. And I also believe that they are virulently offended to the idea of breaking down security and privacy for those who want that extra layer of privacy.
There is good news, though, if you are in other countries. Apple has rolled out Tap to Pay in Bulgaria, Finland, Hungary, Liechtenstein. Am I saying that right? Liechtenstein, Poland, Portugal, Slovakia, Slovenia. Oh, they're different countries. Okay. Switzerland. I'm being silly. Sorry. Now are all offering Tap to Pay. That is the feature where you can use your iPhone as a payment terminal. You don't have to buy a fancy square terminal or anything. You just tap the iPhones together and they mate and have a little baby.
It works so well. I use it. I go to the I'm often at the San Rafael farmers market on Sunday.
Yeah, it's perfect for farmers markets.
And
right?
where I get this breakfast burrito. It's kind of like my little thing to get there. And the woman that's there, she has an iPhone. She just reaches out and it's like second.
So cool.
And it's just like, it's magic.
And it does that little whoo thing on the screen and whoo, and then the money flows.
Yeah. And then you go to the next stall and it's like cash only. And you're like,
oh God, I ain't got no cash, man. What do you want cash for?
Yeah, exactly.
Apple is working on multiple versions of a second generation studio display. It's funny, we mocked the studio display because it was so expensive for what you get, and yet I bought one for Lisa.
I bought two.
Everybody's got them because it just works. It's got a camera in it. It's just easy.
Yeah.
I hope they find a way to make it less expensive. That would be nice.
It's pretty good for what it does. Like it's a pretty good deal. Like compared to there's not a lot of other things. The reason that Apple's selling them and the reason people buy them is for what it does. There's not a lot of other. They had to make it because in that price point, you don't see a lot of other.
There are now multiple screens that are a lot like Samsung makes one, and it's not as good, but it's been discounted to the point now where it is appreciably less than this. But it took a while.
$1,600, right, for the studio display.
And Apple doesn't cut their prices over time, so it's just sitting there until they update it. It would be great, right? Like they could do a higher frame rate version, or better screen refresh, ProMotion. They could improve that camera, which they've upgraded the cameras and all of the products they've shipped in the last year, so that there's probably something they could do there. It would be a good time to do one. But yeah, again, the studio display, even though it's expensive and it now has more competition, there's that other part of it, which is, I feel the same way presumably Alex would about that Samsung display. Is I got one, I tried it out, and if I could save, $700 or something, then yeah, let's talk. But it's going to be a worse experience. It just is cheap, and it's got all of the Samsung apps loaded on it. So it kind of wants to be a TV, and you have to sort of tell it, no, stop trying to be a TV. And it's not as nice. And so, Apple having a monitor that's more expensive than others, but it's nice, that's where Apple wants to be.
Yep.
Speaking of encryption, Apple has said we are soon going to add support for end-to-end encryption in RCS messaging. That is when you are messaging somebody on an Android device. Right now, Android users have encryption end-to-end if they're talking to each other.
Well, I think Apple's following the spec, right?
Exactly. The GSM basically upgraded. Now, after many years of work, have upgraded their spec to include a specification for end-to-end encryption. This is what Apple has always said, that they don't want to put in all the work to support Google's end-to-end encryption spec. They would much rather wait for the GSM to approve an end-to-end encryption spec and then support that. So that's what they're doing. And both Apple and Google have said that we're going to be supporting this end-to-end encryption spec all the way.
No specific timeline, but maybe in the next version of iOS, or maybe even in an 18-point release. They're
busy. They're busy.
Yeah.
The question is, are they going to hang on to the green bubbles? Because remember, they were always saying, "Oh, we want to warn people that part of their chat is not being encrypted." So, okay, great, it's now end-to-end encrypted. Are you going to stop shaming people with Android phones?
They won't be blue because they're not iMessage, but I do think they need to signify that they're encrypted, right? So, is it a new icon? Is it a new color or something like that? But I would say they're not going to be blue because they're not iMessage.
Yeah. Yeah.
And also, again, one of those tidbits we found out because of a lawsuit, that they really do believe that they don't want to give people an excuse to give their kids cheaper Android phones, and they're disincentivized from basically making the interoperability as seamless as possible. So, kicking and screaming, I think, will be the modus operandi.
Except, I mean, honestly, at this point, the difference will be color, because if you're an encrypted RCS connection, I don't know if you've noticed this, Andy, but the interplay between iOS and Android for messaging in the last year has gotten a lot better. Like the tapbacks and like all of that stuff is sort of working fine now in a way that it wasn't before. So the pain is a lot less if you're in heterogeneous set of communicators. It's okay, and then adding in the encryption will just make it even less of an issue.
Yeah, and remember that we don't know why Apple suddenly decided to start supporting RCS, but the rumor is that they were forced to do so to comply with rules in China. So I don't think that regulation and the government control of technology is always a great thing, but it is a good thing to sometimes have a government say, yeah, no, you're doing it this way because this is the best way for all of our citizens.
Actor Pedro Pascal is super hot right now after his success with Last of Us. He's a great actor, and I don't know how much Apple paid for a 5-minute Spike Jonze directed commercial for AirPods 4, but I do know he's not acting when he says those AirPods just make him feel so much better. Here he is walking sadly down the. You can show this. They're not going to ding us for this. I'm not going to play the sound.
And this isn't a cameo. This is a shot of him for the entire 5-minute video.
He's the star. He's walking down the street, very disconsolate, because I gather his girlfriend doesn't like him anymore.
Well, he was looking. So the opening shot is him looking mournfully at a woman sitting at a table who looks back at him. We don't
know what.
He's basically walking through the 1984 video.
It's grim. It's gray.
Snow.
And everybody's sad, but he's got his AirPods in and they're dancing.
And then he turns on the noise kit. Basically, I want to be inside my own head, and everything turns colorful and bright. And look, across the street, there's another version of him that's meeting friends and making dinner plans and happy, and he can start dancing in a palette of oranges and reds. It's a great one. Like you were talking about her, like it was Spike.
Are they gonna? Is this going to be cut down into a 30 and a 60 for TV, or is it just?
Totally.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, there's no messaging. There's no like. Thanks to the noise cancellation, I can stop listening to this person who's asking for me directions and enjoy life. It's like, no, it's actually a very nice, lovely little 5-minute film.
It is. Yeah, Spike Jonze directed. So this must have cost him millions and millions.
This is a real short movie. This could a real movie. It's not a promo.
It doesn't say shot on iPhone, but I bet it was. I don't know.
Wouldn't be shocked.
And if it was, then there's a whole bunch of behind the scenes. There's a whole bunch of, like.
There will be. There'll be more, right?
Yeah.
Could be.
Yeah. And there's Santa Claus as a construction worker. That's cool. It's really cool. It's really nicely done. Maybe Pedro was inspired by the artistic vision and said, "I'll do it for free." I don't know.
That's why he hired Spike Jonze. It's like, oh wow, so we're really making a little movie. We're not just doing a commercial. It's like in that case, I will. You hire directors because directors attract actors, and sometimes vice versa. And this is beautiful stuff.
And it's it's interesting 4:3 format. So it's that's an interesting choice in building that out too. Bet you would look good on an IMAX screen. But it is an interesting whole bunch of set of choices. But yeah, for directors and actors, a lot of times these corporate things, especially when they're given a lot of creative control, like, hey, we'll give you a bunch of money and then we'll give you a huge budget and you can just go out and play. What do you want to do? And that
sounds great.
You can often get somebody to show up and do something when you do that.
Probably bought him another house in Beverly Hills. Last story before we get to our picks of the week. Eric Mijakowski writing on his Pebble blog. Not too happy with Apple. As you know, I think today the new Pebble watch comes out. Soon, anyway.
Two models. Pre-orders start now. First version ships in July. Second version, the one that's basically a redo of the last Pebble watch, ships in July with a polycarbonate case and a monochrome display. There's a color one with additional heart rate monitor with a metal case and a larger screen that ships in December. 150 and 250.
I suspect there's some iPhone users who would like to use it, but Eric says Apple restricts Pebble from being awesome with iPhones.
Yep.
Should get him some noise canceling AirPods. We will build a good app for iOS, but be prepared. There's no way for us to support all the functionality Apple Watch has access to. Not because they couldn't, but because Apple won't let them.
He says it's impossible for a third-party smartwatch to send text messages or perform actions on notifications like dismissing, muting, replying, and many, many other things.
It's security, don't you know?
Yeah,
to protect you.
They just want to make sure that their customers have the best. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's like this is another after they've run out of things to sue Apple for the App Store. I think that the next thing that they're going to do is it really is kind of lame that they're not allowing functionality between iPhones and third-party watches. That does seem like we don't want to encourage people to buy a third-party watch. Yeah. We want to lock them further into the ecosystem.
By the way, the Pebble. The Repebble website is just fantastic.
Yeah.
8 years later, you still can't beat a Pebble, and there's a gravestone, 2012 to 2016, and then a hand pops out of the grave.
Like a Sierra Online game.
Yeah, it's 8-bit.
The blog post is monospace text.
I love it.
Like it looks like a markdown editor.
Back in the time. I'm really tempted. I must say, I'm really tempted.
I really am too, because I mean, I think I mentioned before that I stopped wearing both my my Pixel watch and my Apple Watch because I I wasn't getting enough use out of like the super features, and it wasn't enough to justify having to remember to charge it each and every night.
Yeah, 30 day because it's a e-ink screen, 30-day
30 days
life.
And also like, that's the thing that they're making a big point of, that this is not necessarily that people might be surprised like, wow, but the last Pebble watch was nearly 10 years ago. Why are they essentially remaking the old one? Saying because we didn't feel like anything was wrong with the old one. There's a space for something that is not quite a $25 Casio watch, but is not necessarily a $400 smartwatch either.
Does it work better with Android than it does with an iPhone? It must, right?
It must.
It must. Yeah, I'm sure that you can on third-party Android phones. You can like react to notifications.
Okay,
you can use
there's two things you can do on your Pixel that you can't do on an iPhone: artificial intelligence and a Pebble watch.
Yeah, but yeah, 30 days using the 30-day charge on this is enough to make me think, I have $250. I'm going to make another $250.
You think this is better than an Android Wear watch would be, or a?
I don't know of any Android Wear watch that does that. Again, if my problem is I don't want to have to remember to recharge it every day or every 2 days.
And it still has a heart rate monitor. It has a compass.
The $250 one has the addition of a heart rate monitor, but they both have step counters. Because that is, I mean, the thing is that the value add for every Apple Watch is, of course, all the health features. It's like it's not as though Android Wear watches, especially at the top tier, aren't good.
This is definitely for the Casio crowd. I mean, let's be honest.
I agree. But I like it. He's also saying all 10,000 existing Pebble OS apps are going to continue to work with it.
That's amazing.
It's probably going to spur development. I'm imagining it like if you're familiar with like the Notes app Obsidian, the difference between like Obsidian and Ulysses. That's the difference between this watch and like an Apple Watch, where Obsidian is objectively more open, has an immense amount of plugins. You can customize it exactly the way you want, but it is kind of a fiddler's text editor. Right. Whereas Ulysses, out of the box, it does what you want it to do. An Apple Watch, I think a Pebble Watch, the stuff that you're going to the stuff that you like about it will come out of the box if it's like what I remember Pebble being. The stuff that you love about it will be after you do a bunch of fiddling. But that said, I am also very, very jazzed about push buttons to scroll through the interface, because sometimes you just don't have access to like bare skin, and it doesn't need it for what it wants to do.
So I wore a Pebble for a couple of years before the Apple Watch came out, and I liked a lot of things about it. If you are somebody who doesn't use a smartwatch for fitness or anything, and all you really want is time and notifications, people would always ask me like, how do you like that Pebble? And my response was always, tells the time, right? It's a watch. And then also it put my notifications from my phone on my wrist so I could see them there. And I thought that was cool. And, there is something to be said for that. Like, not everybody needs a fitness watch. They don't.
Well, my watch says it's time to take a break and get ready for your picks of the week. You're watching MacBreak Weekly. Andy, Alex, and Jason. I know it's something I look forward to every Tuesday. I hope you do too. We stream it live so you can watch it, get the first edition. If you're in the club, you can watch it in our Club Twit Discord, but you can also watch on YouTube and Twitch and X.com and TikTok and LinkedIn and Facebook and Kick. And it's nice to watch live. But our club members get a little something extra. They also get to chat live. Well, actually, you all get to do that too. Club members get ad-free versions of all the shows. How about that? You also get access to the Club Twit Discord, where the chatting happens all the time, which is a lot of fun. Mark Prince contacted me. We're going to do a really fun coffee clatch soon. We'd like to talk about coffee. Micah's Creative Corners coming up in the club. We have Stacy's Book Club. Let's see, Micah's Crafting Corners tomorrow, 6 p.m. Pacific, every third Wednesday of the month. So you can craft along with Micah. He's building some tiny little thing. I forgot the user group again, but no, I didn't. It's coming up March 28th. It's the fourth Friday. I missed the first AI user group, but I'm very excited about this. We get together, we show each other how we're using AI. This is a lot of fun. Chris Marquardt's Photo Time, April 3rd. Brilliant is the word, and more to come. I want to have some more events in the club. So there's a lot of benefits, and guess what? All of this, 7 smackers a month, $7 a month. That's a very affordable club. For all the shows, ad-free versions, the behind-the-scenes stuff, twit.tv/clubtwit. But But the real reason I want to encourage you to do it, it makes a big difference to us. It doesn't go into my pocket, but it keeps the shows on the air. It goes into our hosts' pockets, our employees' pockets. It goes into the electric company's pockets. It keeps things going, and it means it's possible to do more. And that really means a lot to us. I love our club members. I'm so grateful to you. In fact, I want to encourage everybody. Our 20th anniversary twit is coming up on April 13th, less than a month away. And we want to get everybody involved. Last time when we did the 1000th episode, we got all the old guys, who were on the first episode together for Twit. But this time I really want to honor the community. If you've been watching for a long time, I'd love to get a video from you, an email. I got an email from a prisoner saying how, he was very grateful because he can listen to Twit in prison. They allow it through because it's it's safe content, and he said it's kind of keeping him sane in there. So I'd love to hear from everybody who's listening. It's nice for us to know. If you want to send us a video showing us how you watch or listen and when you first discovered Twit, that kind of thing, just email it to me, leo@leoville.com, or put it on the socials and make sure @Twit is in there, and we will start playing them. Scooter X says, but wait, it's during Coachella. I won't be. You're going to Coachella instead of being here for our 20th anniversary, Scooter X? People were saying that Scooter X should be featured. He's been with us for so long as a chat mod for many years, and now as a club member. Anyway, we'd love to get that for April 13th. Record something for us, and you could be part of the 20th anniversary show. All right, let's get our picks of the week going here. Jason Snell, what do you got?
All right. I am going in my endless quest to find a good outdoor HomeKit capable security camera. I have come to the Aqara G5 Pro, which costs $180. It's available all over the place. It comes in a Wi-Fi version for a little bit more. You can get a power over Ethernet version. It is rugged. It is sturdy.
Look at it. It looks pretty good.
It's got a spotlight. It is very high video quality. I'm very impressed with it. If you use the Aqara app instead of using it through HomeKit, you get a whole bunch of other kind of machine learning features about like identifying people who are lingering around your door or whatever, like their things. Or you can just use it with HomeKit. It works with HomeKit Secure Video. It's very hard to find a good camera that works with HomeKit Secure Video. And it's got a bunch of other nerdy features that are kind of amazing. It is a Zigbee hub. It is a Thread hub. It is a Matter controller.
Wow.
It works with not just HomeKit, but of course, Alexa, Google Home, Home Assistant, you name it, because it's a hub as well as a camera. And it's got internal storage that it can save to. Also, right out of the box, it can write video to a NAS or any other like SMB share on your network. So I was able to just put in my server and it will stream video to the server in addition to HomeKit. Like there are lots and lots of features. It is really, they threw everything at this thing. It is chunky. It's a chunky boy, but I'm very impressed with it so far. I'm going to permanently be mounting it, in fact, because I think it is thus far the winner of the sweepstakes of can I get an outdoor camera that actually works. So with HomeKit.
I like, there are a lot of choices, and some of them, like the Ring cameras, upload to the cloud. And because I am broadcasting, streaming from here, we can't use upstream bandwidth for
fills
that
your
kind
internet,
of stuff. So those are the kinds of cameras we use Ubiquiti cameras, but that's a really important consideration. It's going to use up your internet bandwidth if you're uploading. So something like this Aqara that doesn't, still means you can still look at it on your phone and stuff.
Right. Well, and it works with the HomeKit Secure Video, so it will upload to the cloud if you wanted to, but you can also just have it store locally or on your network, and it'll do that too. It really is sort of like an all purpose device. Whatever your home platform of choice is, it'll work with it, which is great. Now, Aqara, their app is not very good. It's very clearly, They pay more attention to industrial design of their hardware than they do to their app design. But again, if you're living in the HomeKit ecosystem, it doesn't matter because you just pair it and you're done. So, and again, for the nerdy people out there is a Power over Ethernet version too. So then you've got Ethernet attached, so it doesn't have to sit on your Wi-Fi and you have to deal with reliability issues with Wi-Fi. And it is also going to be that Zigbee thread Matter hub as well. So a lot of cool things about it.
For the Ubiquity, I actually have a hard drive array of, massive hard drive array to record. How could you do that with HomeKit? Could you have a local hard drive array that you record to, or?
HomeKit Secure Video is a cloud thing. It uses Apple
cloud.
surfers, so you just need a camera that will record. So in this case, I literally put in my SMB credentials, and it will stream video right to my RAID on my network.
Good, because that's what I need. I don't mind putting it on the LAN, but I don't want to have to upload it to the cloud because it'd kill our.
And it's got 6 gigs of internal storage, so it will write that stuff internally as well until it runs out, and then it'll just keep deleting.
The reason I don't want to leave it internal is because if somebody comes along and wants to rob me, he's going to kill the camera and take it with him, and then he's
Yeah.
I like having it recording somewhere else, just in case.
I hear you.
You know what I'm saying? I'm not paranoid. I never really wanted to have cameras all over the house, but here we are. And it is useful. I just saw the UPS guy deliver. So, Andy and Akko, pick of the week.
Now, I don't mean to kick Apple when they're down regarding AI, but I have been having so much fun with the new version of Google Gemini Flash 2.0. For $20 a month, you get like extra AI features, but you also get access to the experimental versions. Like that's not ready yet, but there's ready yet for if you're a developer. You can start messing around with it.
So you took this image.
So I took this. I basically during the show I took just a selfie of myself on my webcam.
This Red Sox jersey.
I just dragged into the chat window that picture of myself as you're seeing me right now. Just a stock photo of a Red Sox jersey from a store shop. Stock photo of like a Red Sox hat from a store shelf, and simply said, Put the Red Sox shirt and hat on the man.
You look a lot like the Babe, actually.
Thank you. Without the womanizing, but I do a lot of the same drinking and staying up all night, and just the ability to simply describe what you want done with this. Like I want the background. So I want the person in the foreground to take off the headphones or remove the microphone. It can also do stories. Like you can even do things like. Not only I want you to make up a story about the magic Pebble watch that's being abused by the ogre Apple into like not being able to speak and help the townspeople. So generate like a 400 word children's story, and I want you to illustrate it in the style of like a watercolor children's book illustrator, and it will like illustrate the story as it goes. And if it doesn't do terribly well, you can simply say, okay, try that again, but I want the color palette to be a little more blues and greens instead of like blacks and oranges. And again, this is experimental. If you were to zoom in on that picture, you see it's very, very fuzzy because again, I'm not paying like TPU units for it to like create like a super high resolution version of that
but you
photo.
could?
Again, you could pay. I don't know if you can do that with experimental, but when it gets released, like we were talking about earlier, Google's whole point is not only to create features for phones. So maybe a future version of the Google Photos app will let you describe what you want to change, and it'll change it.
It is recognizably you, though. That's
it is.
good.
It didn't change the face. Oh, another thing, like. I did one test where I had to create like a stand-up routine about paper airplanes. It's the first thing that came to my head, and I want you to show me like imagine that's being shot on video, and the stand-up comedian is like on stage at a small comedy club telling the story, and give me frame grabs as he's telling this story, and it generates all these images, and the person is the same person, picture after picture after picture. And when I say things like I want have him get increasingly angry as he tells the story and end the joke by tearing up. They decided that the image generator decided he should be holding a paper airplane. So okay, so I want you to end the joke with him tearing up the paper airplane and throwing it on the floor, and it regenerated it, and it was the exact same character. So that in itself is something that is not an automatic thing in image generation where it's like, don't change the person, make sure it's the same person as you make these changes that I'm talking about. It's a lot of fun. It really is a good peek into like what photo editing and what a lot of creation is going to be like in the hopefully not too distant future. And does give you a peer into this. When I'm talking about Apple doesn't necessarily have to have amazing AI features on every phone immediately, but in a couple years' time, when you have the ability to say, not just use like hand editing on your photo editor, when you simply say, I want the third person on the left to be at the very, very end, and I want the second person to the right to be gone completely, and move it together so you can't see that someone's been removed, and just like say that to a personal system, and it just happens. That is going to be one of those moments I keep talking about of why can't my phone do that? Because it's very, very applicable to what a lot of people do. So it's a lot of fun to play with.
I got my Pixel 9 over here. I'm going to have to start messing with it. Very interesting. Yeah. Thank you, Andrew. Andy, by the way, we don't mention it enough, hosts a show about Android called Material with Florence Ion.
Yep, all about Google. So you think that we talk a lot about lawsuits and antitrust on this show? Oh boy, I have to oftentimes like say, okay, how of the last 3 weeks have we actually not stopped talking about them being sued into oblivion by the Department of Justice or somebody else?
Yeah.
So it's fun. Google infests and impresses all of our lives in every way, which means that there's a lot of scary things to talk about, a lot of great things to talk about. It's a lot of fun. It's on the Relay network.
Relay.fm. All right, it's time. I might actually buy this. It's time. It's only a tenth of an Alex. Alex Lindsay, your pick of the week.
A friend of mine, Chris Fenwick, sent me a picture of this, and within a minute, I owned it. Like it was on its way. I was just so this is it.
Look at it.
Look at this little guy.
It's a Mac Mini case
into a case. Everything
turns it into a cheese grater,
and I fill up all these ports, and so I
it works with all the ports and everything, and
works with all the ports.
Cooling works.
It's actually build quality. Now, there's about 3 or 4 of these. I will admit this is probably the more expensive one at $75. But the build quality is good. It's got a nice little. The power button now is again on the side because it sits up like this, and it's good build quality as far as that goes. And it fits quite nicely. It looks very nice on a desk. My son has been using this to do some DaVinci Resolve work, and so so
cute.
It's like this little power machine on the side of it. It's completely absurd, completely not needed, and so much fun.
Why I'm thinking of getting it? Because I get when my speakers are too close to my Mac Mini, I get a little buzz, and I'm thinking this might shield it a little bit better. Maybe. You think?
It could.
It's aluminum, right?
Yeah. So it's heavy. Like this is not like a little plastic thing. This is machined. There's some other ones that are probably a little lighter weight than this one. This one really, you feel like you bought something that is going to protect it. I guess I don't know if it needs protecting, but anyway, it was just too much fun not to get it. So
I really, really hope. I would not blame them. I would encourage them to create an optional set of wheels that cost like $180 for the set.
That would be great.
All right, it's on Amazon. So
made by Tiga. I mean, I'm sure some
Chinese company
that but it's a super fun little.
We'll put a link in the show notes so you can go right to it, or you could search for aluminum chassis stand for 2024 Mac Mini M4, M4 Pro, Mac Mini M4 stand, Mac Mini M4 case, optimized heat distribution accessories for Mac Mini M4, Mac Mini M4 mount, Mac Mini M4 holder, brand Tiga.
Very SEO oriented.
All of it. Yeah. This is something new though. I never saw this before on Amazon. Shorter shipping distance. This item ships from a warehouse that's closer than average to you. So it would emit less carbon if I bought it. So I'm going to buy it. I mean,
there you go.
It's good for the environment.
It's coming straight to you from American Valley or what is the American? That's where the big warehouse.
They probably bought when they saw Alex bought one. They probably bought 10 more and put them in the warehouse.
Yeah,
say, man, we're going to get
American
some more.
Canyon. That's the one. That's
American Canyon. Yeah,
that's the big warehouse.
Is that nearby? That's kind of far.
It's in Napa.
Oh, it is
in Napa.
Okay.
That's the big one that you get
by
from the same day.
Yeah.
They're probably. Should be Amazon warehouse in every town at this point.
What's interesting, I don't remember who had it. There was something that maybe it was an NPR thing where they talked about where they find like places like Lancaster, Pennsylvania is a great place to put a warehouse because it has lots of highways that go to New York and Philadelphia. And so there's these hubs where all these highways happen to interact with each other, and they can do, the math. They figure out where that math is, and then they just put these massive warehouses, but they're the math is, they're odd places in the United States that they put them because it fulfills a very odd set of algorithms.
Logistics is a fascinating subject. If I were a young person, I might study that. It's certainly well, maybe something AI could do better. But
what Oma Bradley said, it's amateurs talk about strategy and professionals talk about logistics.
Right, and an army marches on its stomach, which sounds painful, but. Alex Lindsay, officehours.global090.media. If you want to hire him, what's coming up on your many multifarious platforms?
We're getting ready for NAB. So we're, I'm doing lots of tests. So you may see, I may try to test out a GDC this week, the new kit. We've got a 5.1 mic that I think I might have talked about.
Yeah, you talked about that. Yes.
And so we're testing that right now. And so we're going to try a 5.1 4K 60 HDR streamed to YouTube from it'll just be on Sunday of NAB. I'll just be there. I have another job that came up. So so that's coming up soon. We had Jeremy Bailenson from Stanford on Gray Matter, graymatter.show. He's the kind of like before Facebook bought Oculus, Mark Zuckerberg goes and hangs out with him in Stanford and talk about VR for a while. So he was on Gray Matter on last week, and that episode just came out today. So it's definitely worth checking out too.
Episode 121 at graymatter.show. Looks really interesting. I have to listen to that.
Good, smart guy.
You get great people. Unbelievable.
Michael Krasny, it turns out, has a very deep Rolodex.
It's amazing.
So,
thank you, sir. It's a pleasure. Mr. Andy Anatko, no longer on GBH on a regular basis, but he is on the socials at IHNATKO. How do I remember that? I have no idea how to spell it. IHNATKO. Get it?
Thank you.
I have no, and then Atko. Everybody can do Atko. You told me that once, and I never forgot it.
It was a tip that was given to me by the clerk at a video store that went out of business, and she said, "I said, I love coming here because you're the only because back when like your ID, like your account number was like your name ID, or whatever, and so I go, you always spell you only people who can spell my last name because I remember it as I have no idea how to spell this person's name, and I said, and I'm going to miss you twice as hard."
That's a really great mnemonic. Thank you, Andrew. Good to see you, my friend, and also of course Jason Snell. He's at sixcolors.com. Many podcasts at sixcolors.com.
Many podcasts. Yes.
Including Upgrade with your rotating hosts.
Yeah, I had John Syracusa this week.
Oh, great.
Stephen Hackett next week.
You
Just
know
a fun
everybody, don't you? You know everybody.
You know this, Leo. You hang around long enough and you end up knowing a lot of people.
Yeah. It's awesome.
But the difference is that you anger and cheese off a very small percentage of the people that you work with. That's
Unlike
how you
me.
wind up with this Rolodex.
Unlike me.
I try not to cheese the people off. Sometimes the cheese just happens, but you try not to. So people can check that out. Mike Hurley's on paternity leave, so it's a good time to get all the guest stars, get through that Rolodex, make sure that I got all the stars, and yeah. So it's
you got Gruber as he was going from simmer to boil. So
I know.
That's pretty good.
I know. Right in the middle of his emotional crisis, it was good. 2.5 hours of that.
Thank you, Jason. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Alex. We do this show Tuesdays, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1800 UTC. As I said, you can watch it live on all those different streams, but you can also get a copy of the show after the fact. twit.tv/MBW. There's also a YouTube channel dedicated to the show. So if you want to know where that is, you can search for it or go to twit.tv/MBW. There's a link there. Or subscribe on your favorite podcast client, and that way you'll get it automatically the minute it's available. And of course, club members get that special version ad free. So if you're not a member of the club, please join the club. We'd love to have you. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Jason. Thanks to all of you for listening. And now it is my sad but solemn duty to tell you, get back to work. Break time is over. Bye-bye. Get tech news at your pace with Twit TV's perfect pair of shows. For quick, focused insights, Tech News Weekly brings you essential interviews with the journalists breaking today's biggest stories. But maybe you need more. That's why I'm here. Dive deep with me on This Week in Tech, your first podcast of the week and the last word in tech. Industry insiders dissect everything from AI to privacy to cybersecurity in tech's most influential and longest-running roundtable discussion. Short or long, streamlined or comprehensive, Twit.tv keeps you well-informed. Subscribe to both shows wherever you get your podcasts, and head over to our website, twit.tv, for even more independent tech journalism.